of interest rates forms the huge bulk of CFS, and therefore, Honorable Speaker, it was important that we align the current realities of the payment of interest rates in regards to the current dynamics, which is an appreciation in the Kenya shillings and also other favorable dynamics in the money market, and especially in terms of the exchange rate. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, it was important that we make this supplementary tool so that our payment of interest rates is taking care of the gain in terms of our local currency and the other dynamics around interest rates. But even having said that, Honorable Speaker, there are also some other sectors that we have deemed are important for enhancement, even as we come to the close of the financial year. Honorable Speaker, one of those areas is education, where in this supplementary tool, higher education is actually gaining 4 billion shillings. But Honorable Speaker, this is majorly appropriations in aid, because our universities have been able to collect much more A&A than was projected at the beginning of the financial year. And Honorable Speaker, that's something we may actually need a discussion, because every time we are in a budget cycle, even like now, we see there is a lot of incentive for the MDAs to budget for A&A that is much less than what they usually collect. Honorable Speaker, possibly that is an area that we may also need to talk about, though we have put it in our recommendations, Honorable Speaker, and especially for the main budget. Honorable Speaker, another area that has had increment is the security sector. And Honorable Speaker, this is based on the realities of our country. Honorable Speaker, we have been able to add a little more money to the police service, National Police Service, and also all the other agencies insofar as security is concerned, because it is important that we capacitate them even as we close the year, and especially to take care of things that have already been spent at Article 223. The other thing that is important for members to note, in this supplementary tool, we have added Kenya shillings 4 billion in terms of fertilizer subsidy, because, Honorable Speaker, agriculture is the backbone of our country. However much we are making policies to move towards having agriculture account for much less in terms of GDP, the reality is that we are still there. The reality is that Kenya is more agrarian than industrial. And in that respect, Honorable Speaker, the program that we've been running in terms of fertilizer subsidy, we have seen a lot of results in the previous months, Honorable Speaker, and therefore it was important, even as we move through seasons, that we have enough fertilizer for the farmers, so that, Honorable Speaker, we capacitate them to produce more and also make agriculture a favorable and profitable business, and especially by subsidizing inputs. Honorable Speaker, there were some areas that were left out in the last budget cycle insofar as paying sugarcane farmers is concerned, and especially those who have supplied sugarcane in public sugar factories, Honorable Speaker. We have also input that balance in this supplementary so that the sugar farmers of this country can get their dues, Honorable Speaker, and especially the arrears that are due to them. Honorable Speaker, maybe there are two so that other members can also take a point, can also get a chance. Honorable Speaker, in Kenya, when it rains, we get blessings in many respects. But also in terms of the recent rains, Honorable Speaker, we have had to expend public resources in terms of mitigation of the damage caused by the El Nino. And I want to assure honorable members that we have also incorporated the expenditure, both at Article 223 and the requirements for the remaining part of the financial year, in these supplementary estimates, Honorable Speaker, so that we can be able to support those who were the victims of the floods. And in that, Honorable Speaker, I also want to make it very clear that the Budget and Appropriations Committee in this House, our proposal is that because some of the people who were victims of these calamities, their livelihoods were destroyed. Honorable Speaker, I got a chance to go to Naivasha, where we got a very massive landslide and floods, Honorable Speaker. I also went to Mathioya in Murang'a, where the people suffered the same. I have also been to Tana River, Honorable Speaker, and saw the kind of havoc that the victims of these floods and excessive rains are going through. Our proposal, Honorable Speaker, in terms of also allocation, is that besides the government giving food ratios to those who are affected, that the government must move forward, Honorable Speaker, and get these people resettled to other more favorable land. Honorable Speaker, a place like Naivasha where there was a landslide, those families can no longer go back to those areas. And Honorable Speaker, it behoves of the government to assist its people at those kind of situations. And that is why in consultation with the executive, Honorable Speaker, we have been able to provision monies to be used for the resettlement of the people who are affected by the floods and the excessive rains, Honorable Speaker, so that they can get comfort by not being resettled back in areas that are impossible to live in, Honorable Speaker. The other issue is that when we get rains, Kenya being practicing agriculture that is rain-fed, Honorable Speaker, also, our livestock also get what they need to produce more milk. And therefore, we usually have a glut and overproduction in terms of milk. And that is the reason why we have given UKCC some resources for mopping up of milk during this time of overproduction. And we have given them money in two ways. One for mopping out of the excess raw milk, but also number two, money for modernization of their factories so that they can start producing powdered milk effectively and in a manner that is cost effective. The current machinery that they have, Honorable Speaker, and the current technology they deploy in terms of making powdered milk is not efficient. It therefore ends up producing milk that then becomes uncompetitive comparative to other milk-producing countries, Honorable Speaker. And we have done that because we know that we need to support our milk farmers, as we need to support our sugar farmers, as we need to support our coffee farmers, our tea farmers, and that is reflected in the estimates. Honorable Speaker, maybe lastly, Parliament, many times people confuse Parliament with members of Parliament. Parliament is an institution, and Parliament is the cornerstone of democracy. Honorable Speaker, in terms of the rule of a modern state, rule of law is important, democracy is important, but also an efficient bureaucracy is important. And in that respect, Honorable Speaker, looking at Parliament, there has been arrears for the drivers and bodyguards who work here in Parliament, Honorable Speaker. From January, they have not been able to get their dues. Honorable Speaker, I want to confirm that you have put in enough resources to pay the drivers and bodyguards of these members, Honorable Speaker, their arrears from January to date, Honorable Speaker. And in that respect, I request the National Treasury that they expedite in releasing the exchequer that we have added for the arrears of the bodyguards and drivers, because these are people who have families they need to take care of, they have needs, Honorable Speaker, and the more the reason, just like any other civil servant, we were able to put in the arrears for the bodyguards and drivers so that they get their due arrears from January to date so that they can go about their business in an efficient manner. Having said that, Honorable Speaker, I now wish to request the Honorable Mary Emase to, I beg to move, Honorable Speaker, having given those points, having said that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and request the Honorable Majority Leader to second.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And allow me, Honorable Speaker, first to thank our chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee and the members of our Budget and Appropriations Committee, all our chairs for the very good work that they have done over the working recess. You realize, Honorable Speaker, as some of us had time to retreat to our constituencies, many of our departmental committee members, their chairs, and those members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee and the Finance Committee have had a very busy working recess as they considered both the supplementary budget and the annual estimates and the ongoing finance bill engagements over the recess period. And I take this opportunity to thank them for the great work that they have done. And Honorable Speaker, as I second, I want to re-emphasize the need, Honorable Speaker, for the National Treasury to ensure that these supplementary budgets, as we have emphasized before, and the Honorable John Buddy, who is here and is a ranking member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, will tell you that over the years, this House has called on the National Treasury to limit supplementary budgets to at least one supplementary budget within a financial year, so that whatever you plan from your BPS right to the annual estimates, you will only revise it once. Otherwise, the business of having to do budgetary revisions twice, thrice in a year is not very good budgetary practice. And it speaks volumes to the level of preparedness that we have when we are preparing our budgets, Honorable Speaker, and also, in a way, creates uncertainty with the implementing agencies in government as to whether you will have adequate resources to implement all the programs that have been budgeted for you within a certain financial year, Honorable Speaker, since you do not know whether that money is subject to review. And appreciating, Honorable Speaker, the challenges that we've had with liquidity, or rather with the raising of revenues in the country, it is only fair that the National Treasury and those who are planning do so with a lot of prudence to ensure that the revenues we project are as realistic as possible, as close to what the reality is as possible, Honorable Speaker. And we must also take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to call on the Kenya Revenue Authority to pull up their socks, Honorable Speaker, to make sure that we are collecting adequate revenues to ensure that we do not keep revising our budgets through these supplementary budgets. Honorable Speaker, let me also note some good progress. As members will note, we have spoken, Honorable Speaker, at length about how we budget, how transparent our budgeting process is. And I must commend the Budget and Appropriations Committee because this time round, they have been very transparent in attaching the schedule. Honorable Speaker, the schedules that you members will find attached from page 757, or rather the first, all the way from the first to the fourth schedule, Honorable Speaker, including the changes that have been made. And Honorable Speaker, this is very good because it allows members to interrogate what are the changes that have been made by the Budget and Appropriations Committee, so that we avoid the temptation that I've always seen over the years to blame the Budget and Appropriations Committee members that they have reallocated money from here to there without the knowledge of the House. I have seen also members accusing each other. And Honorable Speaker, because I have been part of those members who have been on the receiving end. I saw the member for Yata the other day, ignorantly speaking on TV, saying how much money that was allocated to Kiambu County and was all diverted to Kikuyu constituency. And I wondered, this is a member who sits in this House, budgets, appropriates, is always in this House. Where was he when that money was being reallocated? Because it is not possible for one member of this House to reallocate resources from one or the other constituency to another. It is not possible. These changes are usually in these schedules, and that's why I thank the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee because of the disclosures that you are making, so that even as we speak on TV stations, let us not appear on TV to exhibit our ignorance of the budgeting process. And it's good that every new parliament, members of parliament, are taken through the budgeting process of the House. And I think from the schedules I was looking at the induction of this House, we had at least 3.5 hours, an induction program. And I want to encourage the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, please keep educating members, even as you speak to them, as you engage with them, even through the committees, on how the budgeting process is done, Honorable Speaker, so that even as we speak out there, we speak from a point of knowledge and not just speak because we are riding on things that are circulated on social media or what you think will give you popularity in your village by mentioning other people's names, as I saw the member for Yatta mentioning my name on TV. And I forgave him because I knew he has to mention my name to look relevant to his people. Anyway, Honorable Speaker, moving on from these schedules, there are a number of changes, Honorable Speaker, that are critical, as the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee has mentioned. Issues touching on Article 223, again, Honorable Speaker, we did indicate that Article 223, and it has been the position of this House, Article 223 is only to be used in cases of emergency nature. Honorable Speaker, 223 is not to be used to allocate money to the office of the Leader of Majority for tea, because that is not an emergency. But the emergency that we have faced as a country with the flooding, it is good, Honorable Speaker, that we are seeing more resources going towards mitigation of the issues that came with flooding, right from the monies that are being paid to people who are being moved from riparian reserves within the city and in other areas where people have been asked to move away from rivers and areas where they are prone to flooding and other dangers, Honorable Speaker. And money has been put to ensure that these people are well compensated. I am glad, and I must thank the Ministry of Interior, that for the first time, even as we've seen houses being demolished in Nairobi, all the people who are living in those houses, Honorable Speaker, and I did see a statement from the Ministry of Interior confirming that they have compensated those people to ensure that they are able to relocate and move away from areas that would subject them to dangers of flooding and all the issues we see with climate change, Honorable Speaker. And this is the way to go, so that you do not just tell people move out and they do not know where to go to. And the small stipend of 10,000 shillings that these people are receiving is helping them to be able to move to new houses, most of them because are tenants. And also, let me take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to appeal to all our private developers. Please, you do know the riparian reserves are 30 meters from where the river is. Please let us not encroach on our rivers and the riparian reserves, because when these demolitions come, you also lose, as much as many of them may have been warned before. And I pray that the Ministry of Interior, and I was asking the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, but he has promised within the next budgeting cycle they will allocate monies to also ensure that the areas they are demolishing houses are not re-encroached again, so that they are fenced off, they plant trees, and those areas remain riparian reserves. Because as we have been told, we will receive higher than normal rainfall over the next 7 years. And therefore, some of these measures are indeed to guard against some of the dangers that we see. Honorable Speaker, I have also seen changes, Honorable Speaker, in the State Department for higher education. And I have a particular concern, Honorable Speaker. If you go, Honorable Speaker, to the schedules, a change of 250 million that is going to the Open University on recurrent expenditure, and that, I have been informed, is very well justified. But there is also an increase of 250 million shillings of GOK sponsorships to students in private universities. This, Honorable Speaker, I completely disagree with, and we should be engaging. I was just engaging with the chair of the Education Committee to see indication, because remember, we have changed the funding model of university students and how they are sponsored through government. There was an increase in the annual estimates of 150 million, which was reasonable, considered by the Education Committee and agreed on by the Education Committee. And I see the Budget and Appropriations Committee has had another increment of 250 to total 400 million. And therefore, we'll be engaging with the chair and the chair of education, so that tomorrow, as we move to supply, we can make the requisite changes, Honorable Speaker. Considering, Honorable Speaker, that many of our public universities are in dire need. Whether it is Bondo University, whether you go to Southeastern University, whether you go to Tharaka University or Chuka University, whether it is Meru University, all our public universities are in dire need of resources. And I know many of them did engage in very ambitious development projects that many of which are stalled. But, Honorable Speaker, we must also be cognizant as a House to ensure that where we put our resources, they follow the policy that has been set out by government. If government's policy is to move to a new funding system, resources then must be moving towards that new funding system, not away from the new funding system, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, we'll be engaging on that, Honorable Speaker. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, let me say the small changes that are there in a bit of the development expenditures because of the issue of absorption. You know, we only have probably about 3 or 4 weeks before the systems are closed for the new financial year. Honorable Speaker, I do hope that the National Treasury will move with speed to ensure that exchequer releases are also done in time for these MDAs to be able to absorb, especially the development expenditure that is being released at this particular time. Finally, Honorable Speaker, I know there are issues to do with A&A in our MDAs, and I was hoping, Honorable Speaker, that this being the last supplementary budget, we would also see a good review. But let me also take note that the changes that came with the centralized collection of A&A through the e-Citizen platform have in a huge way helped government in making sure that all the A&A that is collected by MDAs is properly accounted for. And I want to encourage the government and the National Treasury to ensure that there is seamless, not connectivity, Honorable Speaker, as they say in the Ministry of Roads, but there is seamless engagement between the National Treasury and all our MDAs to ensure that the transactions have that seamless connectivity from their MDAs to the National Treasury to ensure that every coin that is raised by all our MDAs, because we have seen in the past, Honorable Speaker, the last supplementary budget every year has been used by MDAs to do last-minute rush or the last-minute dash towards procurement, because people hide their A&A and they then move to ensure that they are rushing this last month of the financial year to procure goods and services, some of which, Honorable Speaker, from experience and from those who have been here long enough will tell you, especially those that have served in the Public Accounts Committee and the Public Investments Committees, they will tell you most of the corruption issues in government emanate from things that are done either towards the end of a financial year or in the run-up to a general election. That is where you will find most corruption cases emanating in government and in MDAs. And therefore, hope that the new system of a centralized system of catering for or accounting for A&A through the e-Citizen platform will go a long way into ensuring that we curb this vice that has bedeviled our country for long. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, in the interest of time, let me not say much more, but finally, to just again once more thank the Budget and Appropriations Committee and all our chairs. I know it was not easy for many of them to leave their constituencies during the recess, together with the members of this House who are serving in the departmental committees, to consider the supplementary budget together with the annual estimates, but also to take this opportunity to ask the National Treasury that moving forward, maybe from the next financial year, once we are done with the estimates, annual estimates next week, Honorable Speaker, as we have moved this morning on the procedural motions to allow us time to be able to engage on this supplementary budget, DORA, or the Division of Revenue Bill, as mediated. And I know the CARA is also coming, Honorable Speaker. There is also the Equalization Fund appropriation report from the Senate, Honorable Speaker, and the annual estimates. As we finish with those next week and allow the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury to come and make his statement next week on Thursday, Honorable Speaker, as was communicated by the Speaker's office yesterday afternoon, we do hope that we will be able to have finalized all this, but also to request the National Treasury, moving forward next year, let us minimize our supplementary budget to at least one in a year. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to second.
Honorable members, before I propose the question, allow me to recognize the presence of Matungulu Boys High School from Kangundo constituency in Machakos County, who are seated in the public gallery. Welcome to the National Assembly. I also wish to recognize our guests who are seated in the Speaker's gallery, The guests actually joined our Catholic members of parliament for prayers this morning, and they are the Sisters of the Immaculate, Father Lazarus of Tangaza University, Reverend Linda of the Anglican Church. Welcome, and as a Loreto Catholic girl, I welcome you personally, and on behalf of the National Assembly, welcome. Thank you. Honorable members, I now propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the second supplementary estimates for the financial year 2023-2024, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 4th June 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 2023 of the Constitution and Standing Order 243, 1. Approves an increment of the total current expenditure for the financial year 2023-2024 by Kenya shillings 51 trillion, is it? Billion, 113,433,000 in respect of the votes as contained in the first schedule. 2. Approves a decrease of the total capital expenditure for the financial year 2023-2024 by Kenya shillings 75,290,535,117,000 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule. 3. Approves an overall decrease in the total budget of the financial year 2023-2024 by Kenya shillings 24,177,050,684 in respect of the votes as contained in the first schedule, and approves for Kenya shillings 23,667,017,803 spent under Article 223 of the Constitution in respect of the votes outlined in the third schedule, and 5. Resolves that the first schedule forms the basis of the introduction of the Supplementary Appropriations Bill of 2024. I'll now give an opportunity to members to debate. I'll start with the Honorable Esther Passaris, member for Nairobi County. I've seen you, Honorable Meli. No, I haven't said I'm giving an opportunity. I've simply said I have seen him because he's waving his hand frantically. Yes, there's a difference. Proceed, Honorable Passaris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand to support the supplementary budget as read by the chair of the Budget and Appropriation Committee. As he prepares the budget for the financial year 2024-25, I would like them to really relook at the estimates that they put and to ensure that we don't over budget. Because when we over budget, as we can see, there's been a reduction on capital expenditure of over 73 billion. And the reason why I say they should not over budget is because it's the budgets that informs the finance committee on the monies that they need to raise. And it's ambitious budgets that actually make us look for ways to raise money that sometimes actually pits us against an economy that is struggling and an economy that has been dwindling. I feel that we need to put a lot more money in Article 223, which will look after the people the citizens that were affected by the floods. We need to really look at how much money we're going to put, especially here in the county of Nairobi. We have seen so many demolitions happening to pave way for the Nairobi River projects, which we commend the government. We need to sort out our dilapidating state of the rivers. We need to safeguard our citizens by reclaiming the riparian land. but that there is a way to do certain things, and we have not followed etiquette ways of doing things. I mean, if we were supposed to actually budget well, we would then be able to put in structures that would make sure that we have a humane face when we're dealing with the citizens who are the citizens of Kenya and look up to us as government to provide for them. I hope that in this supplementary budget, we would also look into the feeding programs for our students, because we have a challenge in not only the public schools, we have a challenge in the community-based schools and in the faith-based schools. We need to start actually touching lives. And when I say touching lives, I don't mean with long-term projects. I mean touching lives with short-term, immediate projects. Right now, we've been pledging to pay the people whose houses we've demolished 10,000 shillings. For me, 10,000 shillings is mediocre. We're thinking that this person whose house we have demolished, we will get 10,000, or because he lives in a slum, he'll be able to find a house, pay a deposit, and then be able to move. What we have not realized is the emotional damage that we have caused that person. Any government, if I were the president of this country, and I really want to say this, because if I was the president of this country and I wanted to clear out the riparian land, the first thing I would have done is gone and identified the houses that I'm going to break. Nobody even knows where it's 30 meters, whether it's 30 meters. People are just waking up with X and their houses are demolished. I would have known that here there's 1,000 houses. I would have actually made sure that I know where they are moving to. Not just break the houses and then tell them to move. Then once I've known that these are the people, because right now you've left it to the chiefs and the DCI and the DCCs have no idea whose houses they've broken, who are the genuine beneficiaries. I mean, it's because we're disorderly. And if government is disorderly, then you can expect citizens will be disorderly. If we had identified and we had budgeted, okay, and we had known this number of people in this particular slum are going to be moved. These are their names. This is the money. This is where you're going to be relocated. You've got 7 days. Then we give them money that is sufficient. And for me, we should have looked at not less than 50,000 per family. 10,000 shillings is not enough. We could have actually said we're giving you NHIF cover. You know, there has to be benefits, because those people found themselves in those riparian lands because we as government failed. We failed the citizens. We have approved for them to build. They didn't just wake up and build. And I'm tired of a Kenya where people are buying land, having title deeds, and then getting loans from banks, and then one fine morning we wake up and say that's an illegality. It's an illegality that we have caused. So how much money are we putting to strengthening the structures of this country? Because our structures are weak. Yesterday I saw Felix Kosgei on TV saying that the government is going to be zero tolerant on corruption. There is no way you're going to have zero tolerance on corruption if you have not given corruption, the entities that fight corruption, money. Have we given them enough money so that they can fight corruption? I really want to see, even within that supplementary, because nothing is cast on stone, that you provide more money for the citizens that we have aggrieved. We need more food for the citizens that we have aggrieved. And I'm tired of people looking at Nairobi and thinking Nairobi is a rich county. Nairobi is not a rich county because of failures of devolution through corruption. So we need to actually make sure that we actually have an equalization fund for Nairobi. Because as long as all those counties that are getting money are failing, everybody ends up coming for greener pastures in Nairobi. Nairobi is over-congested. And as I stand here, I support fully, and I hope that the budget can consider this, 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. We need to make sure that we appropriate budgets that way. We need to make sure that every citizen, and this will actually improve our democracy, because when we say 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, people will take voting seriously. People will ensure that they register as voters. Because right now we have voter apathy. 8 million people did not vote. Why? Because they have no confidence in government. But when we take resources to the places that are needed, how can you give Kasarani, which has over 300,000 people, the same resources as you give us a constituency with 11,000 people? We are failing. So as we budget, let us budget according to our pockets. As as we then budget according to our pockets, then we actually look for ways to raise money. And as we look for ways to raise money, okay, let's also remember that we owe a lot of people. I want to know that Budgets and Appropriation budget that we have right now, the supplementary. Have we made sure that we're going to pay some pending bills? We have actually made our citizens very, very poor because we're not paying pending bills. So, you know, as a government, let me tell you, when I was looking at the South African elections and I saw how the DA party got so many votes, I'll tell you, there will come a time that the DA party will rule South Africa. And there will come a time that an independent candidate will be the president of this country. Because at the end of the day, people are getting poorer and poorer. No matter what we do, how are we going to change that? It starts with budgeting, and we have to have a human touch. Government might be a building, but the building is run by humans. And if we are leaders and we go out and ask for votes, let us start touching lives. Let us start saving lives. Let us start empowering and enriching our citizens. We need to do that. And if it's tightening the belt, let's even start with Parliament tightening its belt. I'm for every entity that needs to tighten its belt so that the citizens of this country can be enriched and empowered. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to the budget. I know many people have spoken, many of the members have spoken, and in all of it, members are actually supporting this particular motion. But I want to give a challenge to members of Parliament. In as much as we have the power to budget and appropriate monies to the various state departments, we also must take responsibility for ensuring that we are able to support the Kenya Revenue Authority to raise the resources to be able to ensure that we have the money to appropriate. And I want to give a few examples. And I think Honorable Dindi Nyoro, Chairperson for Budget, I also want to ask Honorable Badi, as Chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, you have a responsibility to ensure that you not only take care of the resources that we have appropriated by ensuring that we don't lose the monies through corruption or misappropriation or carelessness or incompetence by public officers. And I want to give you a few examples as we appropriate. I know you have appropriated to the judiciary, for example. As we speak, Honorable Badi, the judiciary was appropriated money by this parliament many, many years ago to be able to rent a building called Elgon Place at Upper Hill. They refurbished the building at great cost to the Exchequer, but they never occupied the building at all, ostensibly because they said there was radiation, even though the Communications Commission of Kenya confirmed that there was no radiation at that time. NEMA confirmed there was no radiation. In fact, the Kadhi Court is housed at the same place. So how do you appropriate more money for courthouses to the same judiciary that has wasted money for 10 years to this day? So it is your responsibility as the Public Accounts Committee to ensure that as we appropriate money under budget, we ensure that we are also not wasting the same money. And if there is a state department that has wasted money, they should not be appropriated more money. You remember very well, there was a Judicial Performance Improvement Program that was funded by the World Bank, the highest amount ever given to a single department in the history of World Bank. I signed it myself when I was Chief Registrar. To this day, they abandoned all the buildings that were supposed to be built under that money. Why are you appropriating money to state departments that have wasted money? And that matter has come before your committee. I also want to ask, on the issues of collecting revenue, the Kenya Revenue Authority needs our support as Parliament. For example, we have a big challenge in this country where we have what they call consolidators, where you bring different types of goods in one container. That is where we lose revenue. Actually, some of the richest people in Kenya have made money from evading tax. And when this matter was, we tried as Parliament to ensure that we say that consolidation is for logistic purposes, not for tax collection purposes. What happened in that, wherever certain communities began to say, oh, you're attacking our people, they're going to lose revenue, you're attacking the business of our community. So it became a community issue, it became a tribal issue. So what did we do? We rendered Kenya Revenue Authority impotent. They are not able to correct the revenue. And just to tell you how we lose money under this consolidator system, for example, if I carry a backpack of iPhones into the airport, that is 1.5 million shillings of tax in that backpack. How much more is there in a 20-foot container and a 40-foot container? So as Parliament, we are busy appropriating money, but we are not supporting the Kenya Revenue Authority to raise those resources. We know that many of you, when you want to import something, you bring it through Isili, right? How much tax are you paying? How is it that they can deliver a car part to you at 15,000 shillings? So you actually see economies and certain parts of this country have been built on evading tax. So we must begin to ask ourselves the hard questions as we talk about tax. Another issue that I'd like to raise is, and I'm asking the PIC, the Public Accounts Committee, because we seem to think the budget process is a process of the Budget Committee. It's not. It is your responsibility, Honorable Badi. Because, for example, when I'm importing a vehicle into this country, I usually insure it. And if my vehicle is worth 4 million shillings, I will insure it for the value of 4 million shillings. And usually, we are required to use international insurance companies. But when we declare the value of that motor vehicle, I say it's 1 million shillings. So how much tax are we losing there? So one of the appeals I'll be asking members of Parliament, we must begin to make it compulsory that if you are insuring your imported goods, you insure with local insurers. That way, Kenya Revenue Authority can say, but you insured it for 4 million, and now you're telling me the value is 1 million. When you read that, we will begin to collect revenue. This country is capable of raising 1 trillion shillings just by correcting those two items that I have given. And I have very many, but there's no time to say that. If you look at the issue of ethanol, which is causing a lot of challenges with illicit brew in this country, the tax on a liter of ethanol is about 350 shillings, or maybe 320, I'm told. But in Tanzania, it's 40 shillings. In Uganda, it's 60 shillings. So what is happening? We are importing the ethanol into the country, but not into the country, but directly to either Uganda or Tanzania, and then smuggling it into Kenya. If we don't agree as the East African community to have one tax regime so that we don't have that issue, then we'll continue to lose revenue. So as we discuss the budget, can we please focus on also revenue collection? We must also learn that it's our responsibility as this House to protect the Commissioner General of KRA so that every time there are proposals, and it has happened over the years, there are proposals to try and collect more revenue, then we move into our tribal cocoons, because you'll hear the people in Isili saying, oh, unamaliza watu yetu, you're finishing our people. Then one point, the people in Kirinyaga Road start saying, oh, our business people from our community, from Central, are being finished. I even remember it was shocking. So a few years ago, in the last Parliament, some people came to see me and they said, please help us. I said, what's the problem? They said, unajua sisi watu wa counterfeit tunamalizwa. Then I said, you're actually admitting that you want support to be able to continue with an illegal trade. So yes, as Parliament, we must begin to support revenue collection in as much as we so jealously guard our mandate to appropriate budget. Thank you. And I have much more to say, but I know I want to give opportunities to other members of parliament to contribute to this. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the chance.
Honorable members, join me in welcoming students from Moi Girls Senior High School, Kajedo East Constituency, Kajedo County. Also join me in welcoming students from St. Monica Munyaka Girls Secondary School of Kieni Constituency, Nyeri, and students from Gaitu Secondary School, St. Olimenti, Meru County. They are all welcome to follow proceedings this morning. This chance now goes to the Honorable Member for Tharaka, Honorable Gitonga Murugara.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, just before I make my representations.
What's out of order, Honorable Mbadi? Honorable Murugara, just take your seat.
Yes.
It's the Honorable Gikari. What's out of order?
Honorable Speaker, I do understand that we have already started the debate, a very important debate on the supplementary budget. But Honorable Speaker, I want to request you to, starting order number 1, that you allow us some 5 minutes. Of course, the only person may be Honorable John Mbadi, because I know we benefit so much from his contribution after he's done. Maybe you could allow us, Honorable Speaker, maybe some 5 minutes for every member, so that we can be able to contribute towards this very important.
Yeah, that is all in
not
order.
Forgetting.
Thank you so much. That's all in order, but you know the drill.
Yes, I do.
You and I have been here since March 28,
I understand.
2013. You and I.
I just taken some pills.
Take your seat. Take your seat. Take your seat, Honorable Gikaria. You know what you have done earlier. This would have been done at the beginning of this. But I want to request members that when you give you a chance, to be fair to other members, try to use as little time as possible so that as many members as possible can contribute. The Honorable Murugara.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I stand, I'm also in agreement that we should actually take 5 minutes, but we are not bound by any rules because we need to start with that. I'll implore members and implore myself also to take 5 minutes, make a contribution so that as many members as possible can speak to this very important motion. May I begin by thanking the Budget Committee and the chairmanship of Honorable Ndindi Nyoro. They have done a fantastic job. I appeared before them. They were really grueling. They grilled us. They asked many questions. We were able to answer. And this is how this report has been made. Mr. Speaker, sir, the net effect of what we are doing is to reduce the budget allocations, and especially the budget on expenditure. And this is purely because we've not been able to attain the targets that were in the original budget. And this is the right thing to do, simply because we cannot borrow all the time so as to bridge up gaps in our budget. Therefore, sometimes we have to bite the bullet and go to reduce what we had budgeted for so that we are able to actually live within our means. We are not being overambitious. It is perfectly in order for a country to be ambitious, but if that ambition is not attained, then you make a tactical retreat by saying, I cannot attain this, let me make a reduction, and we move on. There are gains we are making in terms of our local currency, which is actually appreciating, and as a trade country, we should make use of this so that we are able to trade well, and especially in terms of imports, which are benefiting from these local currency gains. As we move on to even do the budget now, we must think of civil servants, including police officers, who are actually craving for salary increases because they're saying they're living in very poor conditions and their salaries are very poor. We must look into this as we look into the fertilizer subsidy. We have actually spoken a lot about the fertilizer subsidy, and we are informed that the country, due to the long rains, which are actually very good, we are going to realize the fruits of the subsidy we have given for fertilizer. But we must again caution the criminals and the crooks out there who are finding an opportunity to exploit this subsidy so that they do not go on to do crooked things to try and sabotage such a noble idea on subsidy, on production, which is what our country is banking on. We have spoken about Article 223 of our Constitution, which allows the government to spend money on emergency without approval of Parliament. This is extremely important, and the government must stand warned that the only money to be spent under Article 223 is on emergencies. We've spoken about the emergencies of El Nino, the rains that we've been experiencing, the damage we have seen on our roads, on those who live near riverbanks, flooding and water view. And if any money has been spent on this, this is justified. We must speak for it. We must, as Parliament, approve that Article 223 does come in, and the government was right to make use of that article to spend money on the emergencies that we have experienced. There are demolitions that are going on, and every member of Parliament, especially from Nairobi, is speaking passionately about it on riparian sections, those who live within reserved areas. However, again, we must repeat, the government must be cautious. These are human beings. They must be treated with the utmost dignity. We even have entities that have old titles in respect of lands that neighbor riparian sections. The net effect is that we cannot have any challenge to those titles, and we must trend with caution. And finally, we've spoken about universities, and I must point out about my two universities, Tharaka University and Chuka University. These are in dire need of money. We must allocate money, even if it's not in the supplementary, in the main budget. Universities must be taken care of so that we are able to educate our children. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. Give him the microphone. Yes.
The member for Tharaka, well done. Just now goes the member for Dagoretti North, Honorable Lachi. I hope you do the same.
Yes, I will, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support and to appreciate our Chair of Budget and the team for, first of all, appreciating that the challenges we are facing, we have to, all of us, stand in the gap, and more importantly, to ensure, yes, we reduce the budgets. But, Mr. Speaker, when you look at the whole budget that we are reducing, we have to also ask ourselves that we are reducing so much from the social side and leaving more on the defense side. And more importantly, that is where our people are suffering. That you find it's in the social sectors, it's in education, it's in health, that we need to increase resources so that we see. Yes, I'll appreciate we have given our community health workers, our promoters. I will appreciate we are looking at KMTC, but also in our House of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I think going forward, we have to ask ourselves, how many KMTCs do we have now? Can we try and now start working together so that students can just go across than still building new ones? Because those are some of the things, if we want to tighten our belt, then we have to tighten our belt in even building new schools. Instead of building new schools, why can't we look at the schools that we have and improve the infrastructure of those schools and see how children can go to those schools than every one of us wanting to build a complete new school? Yet we are saying we want to really work together. We want to ensure, because some of the schools you find now, you have 100 students, and you have a whole school, and you'll still need to maintain those schools to be better schools. And so, Mr. Speaker, today, even as we speak, and I want to speak for Nairobi, that indeed I know we have crisis of classrooms, we have all these challenges that are facing us. But for us, we also want to see that indeed we are improving academically. We have, yes, huge numbers of students in our schools, 5,000. And so even if I improve this school, I always know in the next 5 years, I have to look for maintenance. But we also must start to have a moral of ourselves in this house to believe that we were given by Kenyans the opportunity and the privilege to do budgets for them. We cannot see our people all the time when we're doing finance bill budgets. They have started now feeling agitated. They are all over. They are in crisis. Nobody knows. Any entrepreneur who's a startup cannot understand, how do I start a business and how do I survive in an environment that is not conducive to do business as Kenya. Yet we have decided to have a tariff that is within the East Africa. I will walk to Uganda, I will put in a company, I'll do everything and bring it in this country the same way. So why are we chasing away those people who would have done business in our country? Because our conducive environment for business right now is very hurting. And so for me, as much as we support, we must stand and we must be very courageous as Parliament to now tell the executive, our people here, they cannot go through this. And we have to do it unless we were not elected as the same executive. They were voted in, you were voted in. I have to stand for my people, fight for my people. For Nairobi, as I finalize, Mr. Speaker, there is no way we are going to do what we are doing. Yet we are the same people, starting from the county. They are the ones who will give you all the allocation letters that you need. You find somebody demolished, a whole place in Keleleshwa was on riparian land. Today, again, buildings are back there. So then you come and start hurting others, yet you can't see you are the one who has decided to show Kenyans you can return a building on a riparian land, and so every Kenyan will go on a riparian land. So it's very unfair what we are doing as leaders. And most of us are the ones with shops there, selling clothes and everything, but you want to finish Madare, you want to finish Ruaraka. I don't think it is right. Mr. Speaker, I support, but it is time this House must stand for what we were given by this Constitution. I beg to support.
Thank you. Member for Mungi West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity actually to add the voice on this supplementary budget. And from the onset, I will just take 2 minutes because I know members have got interest on this. Mr. Speaker, I would like to start by thanking the Chair Committee, Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro, for the effort actually together with the members, the way they have done this supplementary budget, based on what we have been experiencing in terms of economic issues in this country, Mr. Speaker. There are some few things we want actually to laud in terms of the higher education actually gaining on this supplementary budget. We have given them life, and we have noted there is increment in that aspect. The other issue, of course, is security, which has gained in terms of the National Police Services, and we are happy that when I read the speech of the President during Mandaraka Day, there is optimism this current financial year, and indeed we have enhanced the fertilizer subsidy, and the sugarcane farmers are also going to gain in this supplementary budget. The issue of victims who experience the El Nino, and we are still experiencing El Nino in some parts of our country. Our people are still gaining on this. And more so, Mr. Speaker, for the welfare and the just government of the people, our bodyguards and drivers have gained in this supplementary budget. But, Mr. Speaker, I am worried by how we have really reduced the government spending on infrastructure. This country has got so many stored projects, especially in the road sector. And every time we are actually planning, budgeting for this, we put a lot of money and eventually we end up removing. This one's actually reduces certainty of the budget. In the future, we need actually to stop doing the new project and complete the projects we have already estimated in our budget. And we will make sure there are no white elephant projects in our country. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is we are doing supplementary budget just short of days before the end of the financial year. It is good the last supplementary budget be done at least 2 months before the end of the financial year, so that we can actually enable the users of this money to escalate the service to our Kenyans. And with those few remarks, I support. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Teso South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. From the onset, I rise to support the Supplementary Estimates 2 report. Honorable Speaker, this is a very important motion because the Supplementary 2 seeks to provide additional funding to cater for emerging priorities and emergencies. And Honorable Speaker, when I look at the recurrent expenditure, the increase in recurrent expenditure, that 8.71 is in a recurrent. And most of this money is in the State Department for ASAL. It is going directly to mitigating the El Nino rains impacts that we've witnessed across the country. So this is a very important motion. Honorable Speaker, besides addressing the emerging issues and priorities, when we do Supplementary 2, we are also basically adjusting, reviewing, and aligning. For example, when we did the budget performance, we noticed that there's serious underabsorption in some MDAs and institutions. So it is at this point then that we also align the budgetary allocations to budget absorption so that we reflect a true and current position. Honorable Speaker, at this point also we look at A projections. We know that institutions projected to collect certain amounts of money, but when we did again our budget performance for the 2023-2024, we realized that some institutions or MDS have under-collected, others have over-collected, have surpassed their projections. So again, the Supplementary 2 seeks to align and reflect the true figures in terms of what it should be in the estimates. So, Honorable Speaker, also in the increase in recurrent, some of that money, most of it is going to personal emoluments. And this cuts across various MDAs. Some of it is going to medical insurance for civil servants. Some of this money is even going to security operations. Some of this money we've been told is going to cater for allowances for our security and drivers that was in arrears. We did not have sufficient funding. So therefore, this is very critical. But also of concern, Honorable Speaker, are the reductions in development. The reduction in development funds especially is affecting development donor fund, partner funds. And Honorable Speaker, this is of concern because this may increase operational costs. And we are told that this has been attributed by shortfalls in revenue collection. And talking of shortfalls in revenue collection, by April 2024, we had collected 2179.7 B against the projected 24.2.1 B. So what it means therefore going forward as a House, Honorable Speaker, as we even prepare to debate and engage in the estimates, budget estimates for financial year 24-25, as a House we need to focus more on revenue-raising measures and how to further shrink our expenditure. And also we need to look at areas of duplication, areas of overlaps. When we look at water, when we look at agriculture, when we look at health, there is a lot of overlap within the MDAs that this House needs to address so that we help to shrink further the expenditure and therefore minimize the deficits. So, Honorable Speaker, I support other allocations to school feeding program, fertilizer subsidy, the sugarcane farmers. I think is all applauded, and I want to support the committee for a good job that we did as the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to join colleagues in appreciating this good work and make the following observations, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when you look at the budget, the supplementary budget, you realize that a few areas have been taken care of which are critical and which are important to the Kenyans. The first one is there has been some increase of resources towards infrastructure for schools. That was destroyed by floods. That is very good, Honorable Speaker. The only observation I want to make there is, as this money is being allocated, Honorable Speaker, we need to ensure that there is equity in the distribution of the resources, so that these resources, additional resources, are equitably shared, so that all parts of the country which were affected benefit. The second matter, Honorable Speaker, which is critical, is the issue of the pending bills. Pending bills are quite a thorn in the flesh of Kenyans. It's important that the committee has also factored in some resources to clear pending bills. My appeal is that we really look at those Kenyans who have been waiting for long for their bills to be cleared, so that they have their bills paid. And in that case, Honorable Speaker, I think we'll make sure that we don't have people who are just have pending bills as which were incurred last year being paid, and those with the 10 years not being paid, Honorable Speaker. The other issue, Honorable Speaker, is important is political parties have been allocated additional 200 million, which is critical for growth of democracy in this country. The reduction was 800, but now the increase is only 200. We understand matters of exchequer release might be a challenge in terms of if we are to give all the 800. But I think as we move to the future, Honorable Speaker, it is very important that we allocate resources for political parties if we want to grow our democracy. And this is a matter all of us as a House, we need to support so that our political parties become strong. With strong political parties, our democracy in this country will be growing, Honorable Speaker, and I think the country will be doing well politically. The other matter which I need to note, Honorable Speaker, there are also areas of concern. One of that is the reduction of resources towards infrastructure, the roads, Honorable Speaker. With the flooding, Honorable Speaker, which we have just experienced, it's unfortunate that resources for the roads had to be reduced. We understand some were donor funded, and on the basis of that resources could not be accessed. But Honorable Speaker, we need now more resources going towards roads as opposed to reducing the resources. So I think in the estimates, we'll factor more resources so that we develop the roads. Honorable Speaker, the other matter, which I think is worth mentioning, is the use of Article 223. Honorable Speaker, we continue to experience abuse of this article. And I think it is important as a country, Honorable Speaker, the executive does what it takes to reduce abuse of this article. If you look at this article, it only allows unplanned activities and emergency. And when you look at it at times, Honorable Speaker, you realize some of the expenditure items don't fall under that category. It's important as a country we take care of this. My last point, Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, is the issue of development budget. You know, Honorable Speaker, the more we continue reducing development budget in our supplementary budgets, the more we are not helping the economy to grow. If you look at the totality of what has been reduced in the development budget, it's such a huge figure that we should not be experiencing this. Even if it's the issue of absorption rates, Honorable Speaker, it is important that we use development budget to grow this economy. My last point, Honorable Speaker, is what the Deputy Speaker was saying, and I think it's very important. It is important in this country, Honorable Speaker, we tie the reports of Public Accounts Committee with the reports of the budget, so that those MDAs who have been picked as not using well the public resources through the Public Accounts Committee should not be getting more resources when we are budgeting. I think that has been a gap. We need to see that gap being sorted out by Public Accounts Committee sitting down with the Budget Committee when it comes to the estimates, so that we harmonize those two reports and we only allocate resources to areas where we think we are getting value for money. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Mbadi, you've heard what the Honorable Makali has said, and I know you now chair the Public Accounts Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me also make my contributions on this motion before us on the supplementary budget 2. And Mr. Speaker, I will start by first saying that I know this is a very difficult time for the Budget and Appropriations Committee, And I want to congratulate the committee, which is led by the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, for scaling the stairs and chewing the gum at the same time. Because this is the time that they not only consider this supplementary budget, 2 budget estimates, but also the main budget estimate, alongside other very important bills like the Kara and the DORA bills. But, Mr. Speaker, having said that, I want to say the following. One, that even though we say that because of economic realities, that is why we are cutting the budget, the truth of the matter is that we deliberately, as a country, for years now, been not truthful in our budgeting process. I say so because the IMF conditionalities forced the government of Kenya to mislead the public on the projected revenue collection. There is no single time as a country that we have been realistic in our revenue collection, projections. What we do is we use projected ordinary revenue as a balancing figure. So what we do as a country, we project expenditure. After projecting expenditure, then we decide on how much we will get from external borrowing and domestic borrowing. Then the remaining amount we lump as projected revenue. That is dishonest, and I think IMF also stands accused for participating in this dishonesty and agreeing and allowing the country, the nation Kenya, to misreport their budgets. But having said that, as we say that the budget is being cut by 24 billion, and Mr. Speaker, I'm saying this because I know you also sit in the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Yes, we are cutting the budget by 24 billion, but where is the cut? The cut is on development expenditure at 75 billion shillings. And there is an increase in recurrent expenditure of 51 billion shillings. What is the justification for this? When we are cutting development budget, we are simply not growing the economy. And so when we cut budget for this year, we affect the following year. Because the economic growth for the present financial year is supposed to help and influence what is supposed to happen in the economy in the subsequent financial year. So it is not right to always and continuously reduce our development expenditure at the expense of recurrent expenditure. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that this House, we are being dishonest. We continue every cycle to complain about misuse of Article 223 of the Constitution. But we do nothing about it. In fact, we help the executive perpetuate this vice. I have proposed a legislation in this House, Mr. Speaker, to streamline and actualize and bring a statute to actualize Article 223 because it is too general. It is a blank check that we give the executive, more particularly Treasury, to misuse. You find that we use Article 223 even to buy land, like we did with Ruaraka land. That can never be an emergency. But when I made this proposal, Mr. Speaker, and it went to the Finance Committee, Treasury appeared before the Finance Committee. They made a complete about turn and somersault. And then now that my bill has been rejected. Mr. Speaker, how on earth would a committee kill a legislation, a bill that is supposed to come to 349 members of parliament to make a determination and a decision on? And then we come here and complain how Article 223 is being misused. It is us who has allowed the executive to misuse this article at will and to actually steal from the people of Kenya and the taxpayers' money. Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, I want to mention that yes, I support allocation of money for flood mitigation and more particularly for reconstruction. The constituency I've represented for 15 years, Mr. Speaker, in this House, and which I continue to live in, and even hope to continue representing in future, Super South, we had the worst disaster that we have ever encountered as a constituency in Sindo. And we lost lives. I hope that this Mzee who lost the 3 children and lost his home, together with the land, because he could not even construct, even burying the 3 children on that land was not possible. Mr. Speaker, I had to use my money to acquire or purchase land for this mzee. I hope he will be one of the people who will be given money for reconstruction so that he can build, can get land, because I only bought 1 acre for him, Mr. Speaker. This is a mzee with a family of 10 children. He lost 3 in a day. He now has 7. He still needs to reconstruct his life. So this money should not be taken to some specific areas. It must be taken and given across the country. Mr. Speaker, we are giving money for fertilizer subsidy, but the same is being stolen. This House made a resounding decision on the Cabinet Secretary. What happened later? A few of us went and sanitized him. Mr. Speaker, these are the things we should not do, because the people of Kenya get fatigued with taxation. When their taxes are being misused, they get fatigued. They are not happy. When they see us as criminals who are participating in sanitizing people who are stealing their money. Finally, I have heard and I have listened and I agree and support what the Deputy Speaker said about ensuring that there is prudent use of resources. I support that. But, Mr. Speaker, as we call upon Public Accounts Committee to come up and scrutinize these accounts, it should not be lost to this House that we are underfunding a very key institution called the Office of the Auditor General. If you look at the financial reports that we receive from the Office of the Auditor General, there is a rush in compiling those reports. There is a rush in auditing. We need more resources to this office so that they can do forensic and special audits, which are more detailed. In fact, the few special audits that I have before me, Mr. Speaker, before my committee, are so detailed, are so damning in their findings. But if you look at the financial audits, there is nothing. You are expecting Public Accounts Committee to bring damning reports in this House. From where? The Office of the Auditor General is not well resourced to do proper audit. Let us give that office money to do proper audit, come up with special audit, forensic audit, then this committee of mine, Public Accounts Committee, will be able to bring reports that can be used to control and manage corruption in this country. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I support.
Member for Gilgil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support this report by the Committee of Budget and Appropriations, led by Honorable Dean Dinyoro. And I've picked a few issues, Mr. Speaker, on the issues that this supplementary is focused on. And number one is education. And I think in basic education, we have had a major problem in terms of the Ministry of Education funding going to the schools, the issue of floods, the emergency response, because what we have seen is that many of these are left to CDF. And don't forget, we budget once a year. So we get sometimes that our proposals have already been approved by the board, have already been allocated to projects, and yet you're supposed to respond to emergency issues. I know schools in my constituency, Mr. Speaker, where we have to redo almost 3 or 4 classrooms for children to be able to attend classes. I've seen toilets that have sunk, and we have tried so much with CDF to do it, but it is not sufficient. It is about time that this is done properly from the ground, and I think the most important people in this process, not just the education officers, but also the NGAO, the national government officers on the ground, from the assistant chiefs, from the wazee wa nyumba kumi, from the chiefs, so that this information is actually budgeted for and money is spread across the country and not just in one region. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, that we need to actually focus on is the issue of overlap and duplication of duties. I know we have allocated some money on El Nino. We have allocated into different state departments. We have done that in the State Department of Roads. If you look at the supplementary, you see the State Department of Public Works, the State Department of Irrigation also has some money. And don't forget, we also have NDMA. So I hope that we'll be able to know what institution, what parastatal, what state department does what. Because if we don't get accountability, Mr. Speaker, as has been said before by other speakers, our problem is not even the collection of money in this country. It is how it is spent. The prudence and actually the accountability of this money, because you allocate El Nino money to different state departments, you allocate to NDMA, the county has another budget, you hear 2% of their budget goes to emergency. We also have some money, 2% from CDF going to emergency. There has to be a synergy way of getting to know what exactly has been done and how we can be able to track this. But more important, Mr. Speaker, the issue of the oversight and overlap of mandate, especially even in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I don't see the reason why even the CSs in this country will have to scramble to go to the Senate in the morning and come to the National Assembly in the evening, because it was meant to actually increase accountability, Mr. Speaker. You see the Senate focused on the issues that are supposed to be for this House, Mr. Speaker, and yet the counties are struggling with accountability issues. I think we'll have to get to a point, Mr. Speaker, where we are actually clear that the governors should be the ones actually appearing before the Senate and answering the issues of accountability, so that we have the cabinet secretaries appearing before this House. Otherwise, this overlap will keep being a circus, and you'll get a CS even called in a committee in this House, and they'll say they appeared to the Senate on the same issue, Mr. Speaker. And at the end of the day, they know they don't have any mandate in terms of allocation of resources or even any censure motion in the Senate. It cannot go through, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue of health, I think we still have a long way to go, and I've seen some of the issues being addressed through the supplementary. I'm hoping through the main budget that many of the issues, especially on the referral hospitals, will be dealt with in terms of the budget, because the idea of having referral hospitals, Mr. Speaker, is that we only take the very major diseases to the referral hospitals. If the health centers and the dispensaries were to be working, and that is what the county government should be focused on, ensure that the dispensaries are working so that the issues of immunization of children is taken to the dispensaries. The issue of antiretroviral ARVs, Mr. Speaker, is taken to the dispensary. The issues of malaria, issues that can be managed at the local level, should not get to the referral hospitals. That way, Mr. Speaker, we will be able to free the referral hospitals to be able to actually attend to the major issues, Mr. Speaker. And I've seen on this supplementary budget that we have even a backup generator, say, for Kenyatta Hospital. And I think most people in this country, right now, health is in a limbo, because SHIF is not very well rolled out. The transition from NHIF to SHIF is not very smooth. So we are having very many fundraisers. I don't think there is any member of this parliament who's not having a fundraiser every weekend for a sick person, for a hospital bill, for a body that is held in a mortuary. So we need to get this transition done very well so that we are able to actually ensure that SHIF is working. The issue of Linda Mama, Mr. Speaker, you find that we still have a long way, because Linda Mama was supposed to actually take care of prenatal, the birth, and prenatal, Mr. Speaker. But right now, it is still at a limbo. We are having mothers struggling in terms of giving birth, and we still have a long way to go. The issue of the university funding, Mr. Speaker, I see there is an increase here, but there is a bigger issue in terms of the funding of the universities. Right now, because many children are supposed to choose their courses, or many young people choose their courses this week and next week, we still have them not sure what is happening in the funding model. So I hope that even as we look at the supplementary, we look at the bigger policy issue through the Committee of the Education, to ensure that this is working well, because as it is right now, it is not. And it is actually causing jitters. It is causing families to actually become destitute, trying to get money, to raise money, to take their children to the university. There is much to say, Mr. Speaker, but I see we also have time constraints, so I'll leave it at that, and I support. Thank you.
The member for Kiambaa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this bill, the supplementary budget. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to congratulate Budget and Appropriation Committee and our chair, led by Honorable Ndende Nyoro, because, we really worked very hard to make sure that this budget and this supplementary has been up to date. Mr. Speaker, there are issues that we were able to address in regards to the supplementary, and where we made it sure that, we have appropriated money to make sure that certain ministries have been able to get some budget allocations to support them, especially on the issue of emergency, Mr. Speaker. And you realized, as our country, we had a situation whereby we were told about the El Nino, and the El Nino came before we could plan for it, and it had to force the Treasury and the ministries concerned to make sure that they have, some emergency money to deal with the El Nino and to deal with the flood, Mr. Speaker. This issue has really affected a lot of people, especially to make sure that our people have blankets, they have places to call home, because all of their homes and areas that probably were affected by this flood, Mr. Speaker, they were not able even to salvage anything as far as those issues are concerned. In my constituency, I have areas that were seriously affected by the flood, Mr. Speaker. We had areas in Mathare that were affected also by this flood. We have areas in Taita Tana River, and therefore it was prudent for us as a committee, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we budget and we allocate funds for emergency, to make sure that we assist and help our people who are in dire need of this money, Mr. Speaker. We were able to allocate money. We were able to make sure that the concerned ministries, especially even on schools which were destroyed by floods, Mr. Speaker, we appropriated about 450 million to assist these schools so that they can be able to rebuild the schools and make sure that these students and our people are back to schools, Mr. Speaker, without any hindrance, because it was something that was not planned for. We didn't see it coming, but we had to make sure that we plan for the budget, make sure that they have enough resources so that they can rebuild the infrastructure, so that after the El Nino, Mr. Speaker, our students can be able to go back to school and maybe gain knowledge, so that because we believe in our education system, Mr. Speaker, and we believe that our children are the next leaders of this republic, Mr. Speaker. We allocated about 450 million to make sure we will innovate the infrastructure as part of it in this supplementary, Mr. Speaker. We were able also to allocate money for insurance for the policemen, Mr. Speaker. Our policemen have been doing a great job to this Republic of Kenya. And every time we have insecurity issues, we always go to them for assistance. And therefore, it was important for the committee to make sure that we appropriate money for their insurance. They risk their lives, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes when even we are fighting with the bandits, when they are making sure that our country is secure, the borders of our nation are also secured, Mr. Speaker. The insecurities within our villages, those are the people we go for and call for their help, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it was important for the committee to make sure we appropriate money, we appropriate the insurance fund, so that these police officers can be insured in case of any emergencies within the line of duty, or probably they are sick. They have a place. They don't have to be thinking about keeping the security of our nation, and at the same time, they are thinking on how they're going to be paying the hospital bills for them and their children, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, when the committee on security came, we thought it is prudent for us to make sure we appropriate money for their insurance, Mr. Speaker, and to make sure that they have a place, they have a safety net in case of any emergency. You know, Mr. Speaker, when someone has eaten and you have food on the table, the next worrying thing, Mr. Speaker, is anything to do with the health. And therefore, we budgeted that money and we made it sure, and we told even the committee. And also, we want to say it because it was among the policies that we said that every ministry should make sure that the first charge within their budget, Mr. Speaker, is anything to do with the pending bill. We were able to put 300 million for LELEC because in the main budget, we're going to have 50 million per constituency. So we thought it is prudent for us to give them 300 million to start preparing the infrastructure so that when this money comes on board, Mr. Speaker, they are able to, to absorb and to assist us in our constituencies and make sure that the different committees, different constituencies, Mr. Speaker, are able to absorb the money and they have the infrastructure that is needed for us to be able to help our people, especially on the last mile, on the issues of transformers, on the issue of street rights, Mr. Speaker. We were able to appropriate, Mr. Speaker. And the last one was the food for primary schools, Mr. Speaker. We made it sure that there is money for food for our primary school kids, Mr. Speaker. Because for us to retain our students in schools, it is important for us to appropriate and to make sure they have a budget so that at least when they go to school, some of these kids, they sleep hungry and they make sure that they go to school because they'll get a plate of food, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, we did a good job, and I want to congratulate the Budget and Appropriation Committee. I'm a member there, and I support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Member for Lagos Songa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me begin by saying that I support the appropriations. I support this motion on the supplementary estimates. Honorable Speaker, as I support it, let me highlight the following issues. The first one, Honorable Speaker, is that it is very difficult to make a budget when it is very glaring that the resources that are, the revenue side is not meeting the targets. Honorable Speaker, as we went through this process, we realized that one of the challenges that this country is going to face going forward is the fact that our KRA is not meeting the targets, revenue targets as defined by this House. And Honorable Speaker, this is happening despite this House going through the last Finance Act, and now we are having the current finance bill which we are going through, which has outlined various tax measures which propose to realize more revenues in the end. Honorable Speaker, the reason why this supplementary estimate is before us is because of failure to meet about 250 billion of projected revenues. Honorable Speaker, this is the reality of the matter, and this House needs to be aware that even if we have those ambitious projects which we want to achieve as a country, we will never achieve them if we do not meet the revenue targets. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, that is the first point I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to make, Honorable Speaker, is that there is the question of increasing recurrent expenditure and reducing development expenditure. Honorable Speaker, all the supplementary budgets that I've gone through, that I've seen since I became a member of this House, they always target to reduce development expenditure, at the same time increasing recurrent expenditure. And tied to that, Honorable Speaker, is the question of something which is now known as exchequer. Honorable Speaker, you are aware that even as we went through these supplementary estimates too, we realized that development expenditure has not happened since the start of this financial year because of what is called lack of exchequer. Honorable Speaker, if you are going to look at budget implementation, then you realize that the economy will not be able to perform as projected because we are tending to implement development expenditure at the tail end of the year. Honorable Speaker, I was hoping that you listen to me, but the Speaker is distracted. Honorable Speaker, please listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying, Honorable Speaker, that there's a question of exchequer which is affecting development expenditure in this country, so that you realize that the development budget will be implemented towards the tail end of the financial year. And this is going to affect the way the economy is going to perform based on how we project the resources. So I wanted to emphasize, Honorable Speaker, that going forward, as a House, we need to find a way in which we can be able to implement our development projects early enough before the end of the financial year so that we can see real development happening for our people. Honorable Speaker, lastly, there is something called confidential account in many ministries.
Honorable Batandi, yes. There's a point of order from the Honorable Masara. Honorable Masara, what's out of order? Oh, no.
Okay.
Honorable Didimas Barasa.
Honorable Speaker.
What's out of order?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Looking at the members who have contributed on this motion, they are in support of this motion, and this is a clear indication that the Chair, Budget and Appropriation and his team did a very good job, and it's against this background, Honorable Speaker, that I implore you to invoke Standing Order number 95 so that you can call the mover to reply. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Kimilili has on his seat and requested that we ask the mover to reply. Is it the mood of the House that the mover replies? Order. The Honorable Soro, you'll take your seat. This will be decided by yourself as members. And order, the Honorable Chairman, take your seat. Members, you know very well that today and tomorrow we are debating almost similar matters. After this particular matter, the one next is the division of revenue bill. Then we'll be followed by the main estimates for next financial year. So those who don't get a chance now, I'm sure can get a chance in the next. But this is your decision to make. So I therefore put the question that the mover be called upon to reply. Will last one opinion say aye? Will last one opinion say nay? So the ayes have it. I therefore call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And I want to assure my colleague
to condole with the family of the late Honorable Kenan Martin Kaunyangi Dimango, his relatives, friends, and the people of Kenya at large. May his soul rest in eternal peace. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The next statement is another statement. Is there any other statement? Or should we move to the next order? Okay, Chair, Internal Security. Did you have a response for today?
Thank you.
Or are you being confused by Honorable
Thank you,
Kenya?
Madam Speaker. I'm just a little bit obstructed by the kingpin, but not original. No, it's a fake one. Madam Speaker, I've got 3 statements to make. So we kindly maybe a week to respond to. A week. Okay, thanks.
All of them. As long as he's aware. Okay, Honorable Chair for Internal Security, I'm told that there are 3 of them. So with the responses in a week before all 3? The responses are for all 3 in 1 week's time. Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've got 3 statements to respond to. Namely one by Honorable MP for Mwingi Central, who I think is in the House. Another one is by my good friend MP for Kirinyaga County, and another one for MP for Ijara. And I want to start with one by Honorable Kirinyaga County. Honorable Speaker, the Member of Parliament for Kirinyaga County, Honorable Jane Maina, had sought for a statement regarding the arrest of Alfred Ribai Choba for the defilement of a minor, Penina Wamboi in Kirinyaga West Sub-County in Kirinyaga County. And the Honorable Member sought the following: the measures that the Ministry had put in place to ensure that Ms. Penina and her sister get justice, the reason that led to the release of Mr. Alfred Choba, the accused, on a cash bail, the measures that the government has put in place to ensure the safety of school-going children in Kirinyaga and the country at large. And I state as follows. Honorable Speaker, on 20th February 2024 at around 11 a.m., Mr. Esther Wangeshi Wanjira reported at Bericho Police Station via OBIN number 17200224 that our sister Penina, aged 13 years, was missing. Both are residents of Kiburu Trading Center in Kirinyaga Sub-County, and she reported that the juvenile had left home on the 16th at around 2 p.m. to undisclosed destination. She further disclosed that the juvenile was 4 months expectant. It was further alleged that the area chief, Mr. Alfred Choba Ribai, had been defiling Penina. The suspect was arrested on 22nd and escorted to Bericho police station. He was, however, freed on a police cash bail of 30,000 pending search and recovery of the missing juvenile and the completion of investigation. The minor later resurfaced, and upon completion of the investigation, the police case file was forwarded to the office of ODPP, Kirinyaga County, for perusal and advice. It was recommended that Alfred be charged with the offense of defilement contrary to Section 8.1 and as read together with Section 8.4 of the Sexual Offense Act. On 13th, Madam Speaker, the accused was arraigned before Kilgoya Chief Magistrate Law Courts and for plea taking. However, he furnished the court with a High Court petition order that temporarily halted his prosecution at the law courts pending hearing and determination of his constitutional petition at the same court. Honorable Speaker, Alfred was also arraigned before Principal Magistrate Court at Baricho Law Court for another offense of assault. He pleaded not guilty to the charge and was released on court cash bail of 50,000, with this case set for hearing on 14 September this year. Honorable Speaker, as earlier stated, the suspect was arrested on 22nd February at around midday and escorted to Baricho police station. He was, however, freed on a police cash bail, as earlier stated. The release was in tandem with this constitutional right of being arraigned before court of law within 24 hours of arrest. The Constitution of Kenya, Article 49, 1H, secures the right of an arrested person that he may be released on bond or cash bail on reasonable condition pending a charge or trial unless there are compelling reason not to release. At the time of freeing the suspect, there was no evidence that indeed he defiled the minor, except for allegation leveled against him. Thus, it was much informed that he be released. Further investigation has been concluded, and the whereabouts of the complainant, that is Penina, was unknown as at then. Honorable Speaker, the National Police Service is mandated for maintenance of law and order, ensuring the safety of each and every person, including the school-going children in this regard. All cases involving children have been taken seriously, well investigated, and culprits arraigned before courts and convictions realized. In the best interest of the child principle, the service reiterates its commitment of ensuring all cases of defilement reported to the police stations are thoroughly investigated and suspect presented in court for subsequent punishment. The service has established child protection unit or officers within the police stations to encourage reporting of cases of defilement to the police and in private, dignified manner. The service has also provided anonymous reporting lines, including Vichua kwa DCI, X Twitter handle, and other toll-free phone lines like 07800 722203 to encourage reporting of sexual offenses, especially those involving children, to the police. Through community policing platforms, police continue to sensitize members of the public about measures necessary for the protection of children. Lastly, Madam Speaker, having taken plea on account of assaults, an administrative action has already been taken against the suspect, being placed on interdiction pending the conclusion of the matter. I submit, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. That's all? Okay. Next order. Are you done?
Two, but I thought You wanted to let the MP probably.
No, I think
Later.
Yes.
So I continue with the rest?
You continue with the rest, please.
Well guided. Yeah, I'm trying to.
We also have a timeline for the
We
budget.
have another speaker here.
Right.
Here. This is for the member of a statement being sought by the member of Mwingi Central, Honorable Gideon Muyungi, on the case of the death of Benjamin Mwaniki Kadhegu. Honorable Speaker, I want to state as follows. On 9th January, at around 11 a.m., Peter Kanyite Kaliko reported at Hola Police Station that Benjamin Mwaniki Kadhegu was missing after the latter failed to pick his wife calls in the day before. Subsequently, police officers from DCI, Hola Police Station, went to his house on the same day and found it locked from inside, which forced them to break it. Unfortunately, he was found lying down dead on the bed with no visible injuries. The scene was processed and sample of blood and mucus collected, and a suicide note was also recovered. The body was removed to Hola Hospital mortuary for preservation. However, on January 10th, the body was removed to Mwingi level 4 since the Hola had got no pathologist. The postmortem was concluded and the status of death established as a result from head injury caused by a blunt object or fall and suspected lung disease due to history of smoking. On 23rd same month, Ibrahim Salat Omar, an assistant manager at the Hela petrol station where the deceased was working, provided non-handwriting of a deceased, which was compared with a suicide note. The forensic document examiner from DCI headquarters was of the opinion the handwritings were authored by the same person. Investigations are ongoing as police await report from the government chemist indicating whether or not the blood and mucus sample collected contain any poisonous substance capable of causing death, and the cybercrime analyst report on any forensic evidence that might be available on the deceased mobile phone. And 17 witnesses have been recorded statement, but no arrest has been done. Honorable Speaker, the last one. I don't know whether the member for Ijara is in the House. Honorable Speaker. No, he's there. He's there. I need protection, Madam Speaker. You have got a problematic assistant speaker. I don't know this. He has been a co-speaker. Madam Speaker, that statement was sought by the MP for Ijara constituency, who is confirmed to be in the House, on the mysterious death and disappearance of Mr. Jabil Abdullahi Farah and Mr. Harold Ali Khalif. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Yusuf Abdi Siget reported the disappearance of Mr. Jabil Abdullahi Farah at Ngara Police Station on 14th February at around 2 p.m. He reported that Mr. Muhammad Hamid Khalif requested him to accompany him to Ngara area to purchase a motor vehicle on 14th February. Mr. Khalif was on board a motor vehicle registration KDE 617G, a Toyota make, silver in color, while the company of Mr. Farah. They drove along Quarry Road of Ngara Equity roundabout. However, they were blocked by a Prado motor vehicle black in color, whose number plate they did not capture. Two armed men allied from the Prado and abducted Muhammad Khalif and Jabir, while the reportee escaped. Investigation was launched immediately. However, the CCTV footage from the neighboring shop and the National Police Service Integrated Command, Control and Communication Center, that is IC3, did not capture the incident. Their mobile phones were subjected to forensic analysis, but did not yield any evidence either. On 19th, Madam Speaker, Muhammad Khalif presented himself to DCI Central and stated that he was driven back to Isli on the previous night after being held in a place he does not know, and that he had left Jabir Farah with the abductors. He further stated that Jabir is a refugee from Dagahele refugee camp, and they had traveled together to Nairobi on 11th February. Honorable Speaker, the disappearance of Mr. Hali was reported at Haluga Police Station on 18th, and it was reported that on 18th at around 1 p.m., 3 armed men entered Hajid Homestead and at Halugo Village at sub-county in Garissa County and forcefully abducted him. The abductee unsuccessfully persuaded the armed men not to abduct him. They drove away in an unidentified Prado and crossed the Kenya border to Kenya-Somalia border. Honorable Speaker, after the report of the 2 missing persons were made, the police circulated signals of missing person within the Republic of Kenya, putting all the stations on lookout in case the persons, as per the circulated details, are found within their areas of jurisdiction. Investigation into the whereabouts of the missing persons are still ongoing. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Submit.
I think now you've completed all your statements, right? I'd like to welcome the following schools. I have the list. I'd like to recognize the presence of the following schools: Njenge Boys High School from Kirinyaga Central Constituency, Kirinyaga County, and also GSU Primary School, Kimbo, from Juja Constituency, Kiambu County. And I think there was supposed to be a school from Honorable Mulyungi's constituency, but I can't see it here. We'll welcome them later. Thank you. Okay, let's proceed to the next order. Honorable members will proceed to the next. You'll get an opportunity, Honorable Mulyungi. When you get an opportunity, you'll get an opportunity. Let's proceed to the next order.
Order number 8, motion. The mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024. Question to be put.
Honorable members, I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Article 113(2) of the Constitution and Standing Order 153, this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024, laid at the table of this House on Tuesday, 4th June 2024, and approves the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Maize flour subsidy program for the financial year 2022-2023. Question to be put.
Honorable members, I now put the question that this House adopts the second report of the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock on the inquiry into the maize flour subsidy program for the financial year 2022-2023, laid on the table of this House on Tuesday, 27th February 2024. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 10, motion. Consideration of the budget estimates for the financial year 2024-2025. General debate, first allotted day.
Proceed, Chairperson, to Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to move that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on its consideration of the estimates for revenue and expenditure in the medium term for the financial year 2024 to 2025, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 5th June 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 221.
Put off the other mics. I think they went on. I think the microphones are malfunctioning today. You can move to the other. Oh, yes, you've got the mic now. What is your point of order, Honorable T.J. Kajwang? He has not even begun.
About, Madam Chair, you know, he is the finance minister. Traditionally, the finance minister should move it from the table. Can he be given a microphone so that Kenyans can see him right from the table? That is the Commonwealth experience. Yeah. When he's behind there, he looks like every of us, and we are, you know, we are small. We are very small people. He should come right here on the table and move the. Okay.
Madam Speaker, if the mic is there, I oblige to go there.
I don't think there'll be any harm in that happening. Is there a mic available? Let's confirm first if the mic is available.
So it seems the mic available is this one.
Looks like the mics are not, we've been having challenges today, so I think proceed from there. But in future, we'll take note of what you have said, Honorable Kajwang. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to move that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on its consideration of the estimates of revenue and expenditure and the medium term for the financial year 2024-2025, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 5th June 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 221 of the Constitution, Section 39 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, and Standing Order 239-1, approves the issuance of a sum of Kenya shillings 2,392,832,508,617 from the Consolidated Fund to meet the expenditure during the year ending 30th June 2025 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule, subject to paragraph 3, that is Committee of Supply. 2, makes the policy and financial resolutions as contained in the second schedule to the order paper. And 3, orders that the Speaker do now leave the chair to facilitate the consideration of the said budget estimates with respect to each vote and program in the Committee of Supply as contemplated under Standing Order 240, that is the consideration of estimates in the Committee of Supply. Madam Speaker, I wish to just say a few things so that I bring to speed members on where we are in terms of the budget is. And Honorable Speaker, on the onset, I want to thank this House because the Budget and Appropriations Committee always benefits from the interactions with the members of this House. The budget gets richer. The budget makes more responsive to the Kenyan people when we listen to each and every member, and we always endeavor to do that as Budget and Appropriations Committee. I also wish to thank all the memberships of departmental committees, and especially led by the 20 departmental committee chairs, for being very integral in this process. And Honorable Speaker, at that point, I think I can move there to... Honorable Speaker, thank you very much, and I would request that the person with the operator to add some little volume. I think that's fine. Honorable Speaker, I wish to make a few remarks in regards to this budget process, Honorable Speaker. And from the onset, I want to thank all the members of this 13th Parliament for being very integral. Every time we interact with the members of this House, we benefit greatly, Honorable Speaker, and we learn from them. Even on this order paper that is so huge, there are all the schedules. Most of those arrangements and rearrangements that have happened as contained in Schedule 2, majority of them have been carried by the departmental committees, Honorable Speaker, and especially through the appearances of the departmental chairs who came before the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Honorable Speaker, we are making this budget on a background. And the background that we have is the background of the year 2023, and I'll start the calendar year, Honorable Speaker. The year 2023 is the one we can measure whether the policies we make in this House, including this policy that we are making, which is the budget, Honorable Speaker, whether it is actually responding to the needs of our economy. And Honorable Speaker, in the calendar year 2023, the economy of Kenya grew by 5.6%, Honorable Speaker, a percentage which puts Kenya as around the 27th fastest growing economy in the world. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, in that length, then it shows that the policies this House has been making, insofar as the management of our economy is concerned, Honorable Speaker, those policies are working. Honorable Speaker, in the month of April, Honorable Speaker, our inflation was at 5%. In the month of May, Honorable Speaker, our inflation was at 5.1%. Honorable Speaker, our target benchmark for inflation as a country is 5%, with a band of 2.5% either way. That is plus or minus. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, in that respect, Kenya is actually at the benchmark of our own benchmark of inflation, because our inflation has been able to be contained, and especially because of the tools that we have been using in the year 2023. Honorable Speaker, our currency, when we first went through this kind of a process, and especially in supplementary one, Honorable Speaker, our currency exchanging to the greenback was exchanging at around 180 shillings to $1. Honorable Speaker, since then, our local currency has gained 15% against the US dollar, and it has gained between 17 and 18%, Honorable Speaker, comparative to our regional currencies. Honorable Speaker, our currency has also gained against the sterling pound and against the euro. And Honorable Speaker, this just goes to show that the policies that we made a year ago, Honorable Speaker, those policies are working. Honorable Speaker, in the year 2023, our financial organs and structures have been working on several parameters for us to stabilize our GDP and grow at 5.6%, for us to have an inflation that is within the benchmark as a country, for us to have a local currency that is gaining. Honorable Speaker, we have had to use both monetary and fiscal tools. And Honorable Speaker, many times we have seen our interest rates going up. Honorable Speaker, that has been deliberate by the Central Bank of Kenya, because number one, we needed to tame inflation, and the monetary tool to do that is of raising the benchmark interest rate. Honorable Speaker, the same tool has been successful in preventing capital outflows, because when you raise interest rates, Honorable Speaker, and you are at par or higher than the other global partners, then, Honorable Speaker, you prevent capital outflows, and at the same time, you attract capital inflows. And therefore, the issue about interest rates, Honorable Speaker, has been deliberate insofar as containing inflation is concerned, and as so far as making our currency stronger is concerned, Honorable Speaker. But the most tool that has been very successful, Honorable Speaker, has been the fiscal policies. And the fiscal policies that we have had to employ are policies around production. Honorable Speaker, our country perpetually spends a lot of money in importing and especially food. And in that respect, Honorable Speaker, actually, our number 2 import as a country is actually edible oils. Kenya spends over 100 to 150 billion Kenya shillings every year in importation of edible oils. But the issue is not edible oil, Honorable Speaker. The issue is on foodstuffs. Honorable Speaker, a year ago we came before this House and requested that we appropriate money that will go into fertilizer subsidy. Honorable Speaker, I want to report to this House that that fiscal policy has worked, that after we gave subsidized fertilizer, Honorable Speaker, our maize production, which is our mainstay, which is our staple food, our maize production, Honorable Speaker, has been able to move in the year 2023 from an average of 14 million bags every year to the last season, Honorable Speaker, which we had a yield of 65 million bags, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, that just shows, Honorable Speaker, that what we do here in such an afternoon could have far-reaching effects even to the plates of the Kenyan people. Honorable Speaker, when we grow food and therefore we don't import, Honorable Speaker, what we do is what is called import substitution. And import substitution is one of the issues that you can invoke when you want to improve your balance of payment. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, again, I want to commend this House for always passing very responsive laws and policies, which we can clearly now see the results, that our economy GDP is high, our inflation is contained, and our local currency is gaining ground against the international currencies and also the regional currencies, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the current budget of the year 2024-2025 is a budget of, and I want members to get this figure correctly, because it's changing slightly from what we passed on the budget policy statement. And therefore, we have scaled down our expenditure from the 1.18 trillion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, to this budget figure, which is 4.006 trillion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, the budget for this financial year is 4.006 trillion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker. That is also a climb upwards from the tabled estimates by the National Treasury, because we had to respond to other emerging issues, which I'll be enumerating in brief as I continue, Honorable Speaker. How we are expending this money is that around 2.39 trillion Kenya shillings, roughly 2.4 trillion, is going to the expenditure of national government, which also includes the judiciary and also Parliament, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on top of that, this country will be spending over 1.233 trillion Kenya shillings in consolidated fund services, Honorable Speaker, which we call CFS. And CFS, Honorable Speaker, over 1.08 trillion Kenya shillings will be going into the payment of interest rates for our financial obligations. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I'm talking about these things because they have a ramification of a member who would want a water project or a roads project. Getting the full picture is important so that we also consider where our country is. Just for members to buttress that point, the budget is 4.006 trillion, out of which, Honorable Speaker, the national government expenditure is 2.39, approximately 2.4 trillion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, the money is going to consolidated fund services is over 1.233 trillion, and out of which over 1 trillion Kenya shillings is going into the payments of interest rates for both domestic and foreign financial obligations. The only sunshine in that, Honorable Speaker, is that over 750 billion will be going into paying domestic debt, Honorable Speaker, in terms of interest rates, and therefore this is money that could end up in the pockets of Kenyans. But the other item, Honorable Speaker, is the equitable share, which currently now starts at 400.1 billion Kenya shillings, which is also an upward trajectory, Honorable Speaker, because this House supports devolution. Honorable Speaker, there are a few areas I want to highlight. One, Honorable Speaker, is that we have been able to climb down on the deficit. The deficit for this financial year is roughly 606 billion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, if you check a year ago, this House was considering a deficit of close to 800 billion. Honorable Speaker, we have been able to come down in terms of deficit from the year 2023-2024, where we now have a deficit of 5.83% deficit to GDP ratio. We now have a deficit to GDP ratio of only 3.83%, Honorable Speaker, which is commendable. It shows that we are borrowing less because we also want to emancipate ourselves as a country from over-borrowing, Honorable Speaker. I want to highlight a few things, Honorable Speaker, which are of interest to the people of Kenya. One, the education sector continues to get the lion's share of the money we appropriate, Honorable Speaker. The proposal before this House is that we are recommending approximately 700 billion Kenya shillings that will be going into the education sector in the Republic of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, there is money for basic education. There is money for higher education. There is money for practical, for TVET and TTIs, Honorable Speaker. There is money for KMTC, even if it is in the health sector, Honorable Speaker. And just to highlight some of the issues, one, Honorable Speaker, is that in the tabled estimates by the National Treasury, members raised concerns about an element of school feeding program, Honorable Speaker. The Budget and Appropriations Committee listened, and I want to report to this House that we have already provisioned 3.5 billion Kenya shillings for school feeding program, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in Kenya, there are many children who cannot access basic education devoid of food, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, the Budget and Appropriations Committee responded to that, and we have appropriated a roughly 3.5 billion Kenya shillings into the school feeding program. Honorable Speaker, on top of the estimates that we are tabled by the National Treasury, this Budget and Appropriations Committee representing this House, we have also, in consultation with Honorable Meli, who is the Chair for Education, I can assure this House also that there is now sufficient resources to confirm the JSS interns into permanent and pensionable terms, Honorable Speaker. The JSS interns have done an incredible job for our country, They have given their labor at a very low rate, Honorable Speaker. They have helped our country for the last 2 years. It is now our time to also reciprocate by recommending that TSC confirm to permanent and pensionable terms the JSS interns. And from this floor of this House, Honorable Speaker, I want to request TSC, as we appropriate these monies, kindly do not wait up to January of 2025. Please hasten the confirmation of JSS teachers immediately that we pass this budget, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, also, there are all 46,000 interns. Our proposal as Budget and Appropriations Committee is that we take care of all the JSS interns, Honorable Speaker. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, agriculture, chaired by Honorable Mutonga, is the cornerstone of our economy. Honorable Speaker, cornerstone not just in productivity, but also in engagement. 70% of our rural population, Honorable Speaker, are engaged in agriculture. And that is why we will be requesting this House, through the proposals that we have brought forth, that we appropriate Kenya shillings, 10 billion Kenya shillings, that will go into fertilizer subsidy, Honorable Speaker, so that we continue supporting our farmers. Honorable Speaker, we are also anticipating and asking this House to also appropriate the monies to new KCC, some of which was in the supplementary that we dealt with this morning, and others in this main estimate, so that we continue also supporting our dairy farmers, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have also put some money for sugar reforms out of the farmers who previously supplied sugarcane to public sugar factories, Honorable Speaker, and they are still old arrears. We have also input some of the money, Honorable Speaker, so that we clear those deals. Honorable Speaker, in the coffee cherry fund, we have also put in 2 billion Kenya shillings on top of what we had appropriated in the supplementary estimates, so that we also support our coffee farmers who, Honorable Speaker, deserve much more than they are getting. Honorable Speaker, in the fertilizer subsidy, there is also a component of KTDA subsidy, so that we also support our tea farmers in regards to fertilizer. Honorable Speaker, Kenya, there are areas that are arable and they practice crop agriculture. But Honorable Speaker, Kenya also has very robust and hard-working pastoralists, Honorable Speaker. And in that regard, Honorable Speaker, when we had the long rains, some of our brothers and sisters lost their livestock. When we had famine, some lost their livestock. When we had glitches in insecurity, some also lost livestock. Honorable Speaker, to set the thread, we have put in 1 billion Kenya shillings for livestock restocking of the Kenyan pastoralists, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there are many other areas around agriculture, but because of time, let me go to the other issue, which is health. Honorable Speaker, this House passed new laws, which is SHIF, Honorable Speaker. And in those laws, we propose to have funds inside those laws, Honorable Speaker. We have provided seed money, Honorable Speaker, for operationalization of those funds as we aim universal health coverage for all the Kenyan people. Honorable Speaker, on roads, there are many stalled projects. We have also appropriated and we have a proposal. Road sector is receiving close to 180 billion, Honorable Speaker. But out of that, over 80 billion Kenya shillings goes into maintenance. Maintenance is fuel levy. Honorable Speaker, I want to assure this House that even during the mediation, one thing that we put forward, and I want to report it is successful, the monies that has been coming to the constituency road committees through KERA will continue to be channeled through constituency roads committee, Honorable Speaker, under the patronage of the members of parliament in our respective constituencies. And Honorable Speaker, on the same, we have what we call development partners funded, which is around 70 billion, which is around 60 billion, Honorable Speaker, or thereabout. But in a nutshell, the global figure, Honorable Speaker, yes, we have climbed down in terms of roads, in terms of the budget, but the budget that is there, we are channeling into, first of all, completing the stalled and ongoing road projects, Honorable Speaker, so that we are prudent enough. The utility of a project is derived when the project is complete. When the project is not complete, there is no value for money. There is no utility derived by the Kenyan people. And that is the wisdom of first completing the ongoing projects before we start off new ones, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, our judiciary, in terms of access to justice, we have added more money to our judiciary. For the first time, the judiciary, which is oversighted, Honorable Speaker, by JLAC, led by Honorable Murugana, will be getting 24.6 billion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, which is a step forward, because we want to support all the arms of government, because that is how a modern state is shaped. Honorable Speaker, for the first time again, this budget is breaking many records. Those who are here in the morning, we debated the issue of the division of revenue. And I see here, Honorable Speaker, looking at the faces, we also have prospective governors. To make their work easier, even those who are already serving, Honorable Speaker, and to guarantee efficient access of the services offered by the county governments. Honorable Speaker, we have upped the equitable share from the previous 385 billion Kenya shillings to the current under consideration of 400 billion, Honorable Speaker. That means better services in our county governments, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, equalization fund, we are also appropriating around over 10 billion Kenya shillings, that money that will go into making Kenya grow together. All parts of the country matter. It is important for this House to support all of us so that we enjoy the cake that we are baking as a country. Honorable Speaker, I want to talk slowly here because NGCDF, the previous amount on NGCDF was 53 billion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, the proposal before this House, there is now a proposal for NGCDF of Kenya shillings, 62.9 billion Kenya shillings. If you do the math, on average, constituencies might get, based on the current formula, maybe between 175 to an upward of maybe 250 million Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, GAF, our women leaders are doing an incredible job, Honorable Speaker. And I want to commend the President because the chairperson, Honorable Jane Kagiri, has been fighting for the rights Honorable Speaker, one thing that I have to admit, this House has got very intelligent women leaders who are shaping the discourse in this House. And they are doing the same even in our constituencies and in our counties. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, on top of what was already there at the GAF, there is a proposal to add an extra 500 million Kenya shillings to GAF, Honorable Speaker. That money was not there. This is fresh money, and therefore it is an addition. Honorable Speaker, electricity connection is not just a social investment in Kenya. It is also an issue about our environment, industrialization, and economic growth. And I want to report to this House, as I said during the budget policy statement, on top of the budget that is given to the energy sector, there is an extra, and I want to commend the Energy Committee, led by Honorable Kawaya, for doing a very thorough job on that, Honorable Speaker. We are proposing an additional 14.5 billion Kenya shillings, which will be shared equally among the 290 constituencies. And every constituency will be getting Kenya shillings 50 million for connectivity of electricity in our constituencies and villages, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, what we have done, constituencies like Nairobi, where there is higher connectivity, there is also a challenge of lighting. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, in the narrative of that vote, we have been very categorical that it is electrification and other interventions which could also include street lighting, Honorable Speaker. So that if a constituency has higher connectivity, Honorable Speaker, their challenge of lighting will be sorted by the 50 million per every constituency. Honorable Speaker, this House, Parliament, many times we confuse Parliament to mean MPs. Many times we confuse that the only people who are here in Parliament are the elected representatives. But Honorable Speaker, even the presentation I'm doing today has been concerted effort from the clerk of the National Assembly, Bwana Joroge, down to the Parliamentary Budget Office, led by Dr. Maside, and other incredible people, Honorable Speaker, who are our staff, like Dr. Abel, there is Madam Julie, there is Bwana Dan Kachumbo, and all the others. I've mentioned those to represent other people who work in Parliament, who are not necessarily elected, but they serve the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, this House also has our members of Parliament. We have our constituency offices, Honorable Speaker, where the people who work under us to offer efficient service to the people of Kenya are domiciled. Honorable Speaker, let us be fair to these people, and we have been so in our budget, that the staff of Parliament, staff meaning from sergeants all the way to the clerk, they have not had any increment of salary since 2016, Honorable Speaker. The constituency offices, Honorable Speaker, people who work for the Kenyan people, when you are feeding bursaries, they are the people who do it, Honorable Speaker. They have not had an increment of salary just like any other civil servant. We are proposing resources for an additional, Honorable Speaker, of 10% of all the staff, Honorable Speaker, both the permanent in the National Assembly and those in our constituencies, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this is a budget where the Kenyan people are winning. It is a budget where our economy is winning immensely. It is a budget that is also responding to social investments like education, like healthcare, and all the others. And the aim of this budget, Honorable Speaker, is not just to bake the cake, Honorable Speaker. It is also about how the cake goes to the people of Kenya, Honorable Speaker. Those who take part and those who don't. And that is why even in terms of welfare economics, Honorable Speaker, we have incorporated it. Transfer of monies to the 70 years plus 70-year-old and above, Honorable Speaker, is there, including those who got registered recently, Honorable Speaker. And the proposal of this House is that the 70-year and above, who are our parents, they should not continue to receive this money through the bank accounts. They should be sent on M-Pesa and all the other platforms so that they access this money at our villages, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank everyone here. To thank the Budget and Appropriations Committee, of course, with our Vice Chair, Madam Mary Emase, and all the memberships. To thank the departmental chairs again, the members of this House, all of them, including the leaders, Honorable Kimani Shongwa, Honorable Opio Wadai, representing both sides of the House, because this has been a very collaborative process. And Honorable Speaker, this budget, because we have gone through it, will make our economy better. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, because we work together with the departmental committees, I want to request one of the chairs of the departmental committees, Honorable John Mutonga Kanyuithia, to second this motion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to second the adoption of the Budget and Appropriation Committee report on the budget highlights for the year 2024-2025. Honorable Speaker, we have realized that the budget has been increasing over time. And this increase is caused by the increase in the population. It is also caused by the increase in the demands for money. It is also caused by the increase in demand for development. And that increase is commensurate with the levels of development we are in, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to thank the Budget and Appropriation Committee for working overtime to make sure that they deliver this product in time and in the quality that the chair has very eloquently put. Honorable Speaker, we are here today to pass or discuss this budget and adopt it. Adoption of this budget, Honorable Speaker, is progression towards completion of the budgeting cycle. Our recess in the last month of May has been very usefully utilized in the preparation of the budget from the individual committee level to the budget and appropriation, and the proposals that have just been read to you of 4.006 trillion budget have been constituted with very careful consideration of every sector in terms of their demands and in terms of what they need to do over the next 1 year. Honorable Speaker, I just want to pick a few highlights as I second. One, the midwifing of this particular budget has been a process that has costed people time. It is a process that has led to a lot of consultation. The ministries, the departments, and agencies have presented their issues. They have been in constant communication with the sectors, and they have also therefore been able to articulate exactly what they need in terms of their budget. And I am sure there hasn't been a major variation or deviation between the budget policy statement that was brought to this House early in the year and the actual budgetary estimates that have been presented this afternoon. Honorable Speaker, the budget has been made to finally respond to the needs of Kenya as an economy, to finally respond to the needs of the people of this country, to finally respond to the development needs of the people of Kenya, and to finally respond to cutting down on imports, especially in the agricultural sector, where the chair has eloquently put that, Honorable Speaker, we are moving towards import substitution. The idea of making sure that we have our own food is one way of curbing importation. On the other hand, Honorable Speaker, the substitution, especially of the edible oils, I'm aware that the ministry or the agricultural sector is in the process of ensuring that we can produce edible oils as a country and stop spending well over 150 billion every year to support importation of edible oils. Honorable Speaker, the notable macroeconomic parameters that the chair has presented in this House, including and not limited to the strengthening of the shilling, the lowered inflation rate, the student growth rate, and also the fiscal consolidation that has led to major reduction by 2% of the fiscal, of the deficit, is a clear direction, a clear indication that this country is moving in the right direction and the economy is growing. Honorable Speaker, the Kenya Kwanza government, which has sat down and made very clear proposals, policy proposals, has clearly come up with the proposals that are leading us in the right direction. The budget that we have basically had this afternoon touches on different sectors. Honorable Speaker, education is key to this country. Uneducated people or ignorant people cannot lead, cannot grow a nation. Kenya as a country is known to have the best educated people in Africa. And this budget reflects to that spirit. Honorable Speaker, the allocation of over 700 billion shillings to the Kenyan education system attests to the fact that we want our children educated and we want to continue reducing the cost on education so that most of the Kenyans can access education. Honorable Speaker, we have also seen budgetary allocations to other sectors. And I do not need to highlight every sector, Honorable Speaker. What I want to conclude by saying is that this budget has been very finely balanced. And Honorable Speaker, notably, this is one of the processes that is not heavily contested between the majority and the minority. It's one of the processes where the spirit of this House is felt and the spirit of this House as a parliament is exhibited. Honorable Speaker, We would like to see more of this, more of agreement, more of concession in lawmaking, so that we may be able to move forward and do better a job as a people and as leaders of this country, as we have done in the budget process. Honourable Speaker, we are looking forward to have the appropriation bill, and also there will be the finance bill. I would look forward to the same spirit that we have today, people who are happy to do the proposals on the budget, also to look at possibilities of raising money to be able to finance that particular budget, and that we do not have glaring disagreements between ourselves and our friends on the other side. Honourable Speaker, many sectors have been looked into and many sectors have been supported. To the extent possible, we are looking forward to a year that is going to be activity-filled, a year that is going to cause more reduction in terms of borrowing, a year that is going to cause to lead to more support to development. Honourable Speaker, with those very few remarks, I wish to second the adoption of the report by the chair of the Budget and Appropriation Committee. I thank you.
Honourable members, I now put the question, I now propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the consideration of the estimates of revenue and expenditure and the median term for the financial year 2024-2025, laid on the table of this House on Wednesday, 5th June 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 2021 of the Constitution, Section 39 of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012, and Standing Order number 239. 1. Approves the issuance of the sum of 2,392,832,508,617 shillings for the Consolidated Fund to meet the expenditure during the year ending 30th June 2025. In respect of the votes contained in the first schedule, subject to the paragraph 3, that's the Committee of Supply. 2, makes the policy and financial resolutions as contained in the second schedule to the order paper. And 3, orders that the Speaker do leave the chair to facilitate the consideration of the said budget estimates with respect to each vote and program in the Committee of Supply as contemplated under Standing Order 240, consideration of the estimates in the Committee of Supply. Before I entertain your point of order, I would like to recognize the following schools. Kabare Girls High School from Gishugu constituency, Kirinyaga County. I also wish to recognize, seated in the public gallery, Musuvo Mixed Secondary School from Mwingi Central constituency, Kitui County. And on that, I will allow Honorable Mulyungi, member for Mwingi Central, to welcome them on behalf of the National Assembly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I welcome all the students and schools who are here today visiting us to Parliament. Madam Speaker, I encourage all the students who are here to work very hard to succeed in their education and their careers, and aspire one day to be members of Parliament and the senior public servants. Travel back home safely and pass our regards to your parents. Karibuni sana and God bless you. Asante.
I'll let you have your point of order, but I hope it's relevant, because if it's not, I'll have you sit down. Yes, okay. What's your point of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Chair of Budget. The document.
What's the point of order?
Yes, the document we have reflects 306 billion, but not 2.3 trillion. So we want to know, where is that document? The one which was printed is 3.6 billion.
Sorry?
The document which we have is 306 billion, but not 2.3 trillion. So we need to contribute to a document which reflects the figures that have been mentioned by the chair of budgets.
Which document are you referring to?
It is on the report on the consideration of the estimates of revenue and expenditure for financial year 2024-2025 at the medium term. And if you look at the total, it's 306 billion, the last page, but not the 2.3 trillion as mentioned by the chair.
Honorable Chairperson, since I do not have that particular document, maybe you can respond, because I do not have that one.
Honorable Speaker, this document is containing many figures. I'll sit down with my brother so that we go through it. The data is correct, the information is correct. However, it needs to be read alongside all the others. But I'll guide him, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, let's proceed. Yes, Honorable Wamushomba, what's your point of information?
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of information which I may need some clarification from the chair of Budgets Appropriation Committee, and I refer to the Constitution of Kenya, Article 221.
So who do you wish to inform, the budget chair?
I want to inform the chair so that he can respond probably to the House.
Let's hear first.
Article 221 of the Kenyan Constitution says at least 2 months before the end of each financial year, the Cabinet Secretary responsible for finance shall submit to the National Assembly estimates of the revenue and expenditure of the national government for the next financial year to be tabled in the National Assembly. According to what I understand this, Madam Speaker, a budget caters for both revenue estimates and expenditure estimates. Looking at what the chair of this committee has been exposing to the House, it is expenditure. So I want a clarification whether the revenue estimates have been tabled and whether that revenue estimate that was tabled includes the many loans that the government of Kenya is struggling to pay. Thank you.
Honorable Wamushomba, if you recall, I think it was the 30th of April, yes, that the minister submitted the revenue. So you're 2 months behind. Yes, all those steps have actually been ticked off. So if you are following the calendar year, because when we came in February, we immediately dealt with the budget policy statement. Yes, the revenue was submitted on the 30th of April. Yes. And in fact, what I'll do while you just go to table office, you'll be able to find it. That is done 2 months before. Yes, let's proceed. We won't waste any time on that because, yes, who do I give an opportunity here? Yes, I know. Let me just check who's here. Okay, and I was just checking the chairpersons who are ready. Yeah. You know, that's why some members nowadays boast that they don't come to Parliament. Yes, because if someone comes to Parliament, you'll be able to know that. So, Honorable Pukose, member for Endebess.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Just to inform members that the chairpersons would, in this type of debate, would have priority, but I'll just give maybe 4 chairs, then other members, and so on and so forth, so that everybody gets an opportunity. But I'm also persuading the chairpersons that even though you have 15 minutes, just in consideration of your other colleagues, if you could make it brief so that many more people can have an opportunity, because this is one of the most important tasks that Parliament undertakes. And it's actually a mission-critical process so that we can allow more members to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the consideration of the budget estimates for the financial year 2024-2025. Honorable Speaker, first I want to thank my committee for having spent time with the Ministry of Health, both the State Department for Medical Services and the State Department for Public Health and Professional Standards and its sagas. And I also want to thank the Chair of the Budget Committee together with the Committee of Budget for giving us an opportunity where we are able to sit and present the various committee budget, and more specifically for me presenting the budget for the Ministry of Health, that is budget line 1082 and 1083. Madam Speaker, when you look at the budget for health, we've done we did some laws in this year. Among them is the digital health law, the social health insurance law, the primary health care law, and the facility improvement law. Madam Speaker, under the social health insurance law, in this budget, we've provided 1.5 billion for emergency, chronic, and critical illnesses. We've also provided 4 billion for primary health care fund, meaning that our universal health care is now ready for rolling down, because the other contribution for the social health insurance authority will be contribution from members and also contribution from the public. And therefore, I want to reassure the Kenyans that this bill, this budget has taken care of making sure that we are able to operationalize both the emergency, chronic, and critical illnesses with 1.5 billion and the primary health care with 4 billion. Also in this budget, we've provided money, 2 billion for the Linda Mama program. That is to make sure that our women, when they go and deliver, they are able to be taken care of as we transition to a more comprehensive universal health care. Honorable Speaker, under this law, under this budget, we've also been able to make sure that the National Cancer Institute is able to be operationalized, because one of the biggest challenges in this country has been the issue about addressing the issues of cancer. And therefore, we provided 100 million to operationalize the National Cancer Institute. We've also provided 80 million to the National Cancer Institute to make sure that the established regional cancer institute centers are able to be functional. We have regional cancer center in Mombasa, we have one in Garissa, we have in Nakuru, we also have in Kisii, which is in the process of being built and it will soon be operationalized. And this will address matters about cancer within our country, in addition to the established Kenyatta National Hospital, Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, and the Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital. In this budget, Honorable Speaker, we've also provided Kenyatta National Hospital with 450 million to be able to buy another cancer machine, the LINAC machine for radiotherapy, because when you visit Kenyatta National Hospital with one machine which is functioning, we have many patients who are waiting. That machine is working without stopping, and the patients are being put on radiotherapy day and night, 24 hours. And that makes sure that we have many patients who are on the waiting list. And this makes it very pathetic, very discouraging for many patients who depend on government facilities for treatment. And therefore, by Parliament providing 450 million to Kenyatta National Hospital to buy another LINAC machine for this financial year, then we hope that Kenyatta National Hospital will now reduce the waiting time for patients who are waiting for radiotherapy within Kenyatta National Hospital. Honorable Speaker, in this budget, we've also made sure that we're going to make sure that the 23 KMTCs, which have been set up by the honorable members, will be able to make them operational through employment of more staff, through equipping of those KMTCs, and also through making sure that there is completion of construction. Madam Speaker, this budget, as much as it is had challenges, because initially the budget ceilings that were put, we had to reduce it by close to 30% for all the ministries. And that, I want to say that the ministry should not worry, because if the government is able to meet its target in terms of revenue collection, then what it means is that when we will have another supplementary one to address the various caps and challenges that we'll be able to face in the course of the financial year. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I want to support. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for the, Honorable David Kangogo, Member for Marakwet East. Honorable Kangogo. Okay, he's busy. He's not ready. Honorable Tangoya? No, your time passed. Proceed, Honorable Tangoya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to add my support to the Budget and Appropriation Committee for a well-done job. So I want really to thank the Chair and the committee for putting a lot of time to really come up with a very moderate budget. Honorable Speaker, listening to the Chair budget, it is so encouraging to realize that the budget as read has continued to really live to the promise that the Kenya government, Kenya Kwanza government promised to Kenyans. More importantly, Madam Speaker, to appreciate is that the budget has continued to really put more emphasis on the matters and sectors that are so crucial and important to the Kenyan people. To mention like agriculture, that a lot of emphasis and enhancement has been given to the sector of agriculture to ensure that the Kenyan people continue to be hunger-free. And it's something notable, Madam Speaker, that should be appreciated. It's also good, Madam Speaker, to note that the budget looked into the consideration of the pastoralist community, especially talking into the issue of restocking. It is the first time that we are actually seeing a very good positive direction in looking into the real issues that affect the Kenyan pastoralist. Madam Speaker, there is also, in the sector of security, there is an enhancement into the area of security, which is so crucial to the entire sector of this country, especially when we are handling and tackling the issue of insecurity and cattle rustling in the North Rift, and actually the issue of bandits in northeastern part of this country. The budget has really taken into consideration, and we want to assure Kenyans that with enhanced budget and provision of the tools of service to our National Police Service and our security organs, Kenya is continued to be secure. There is a huge budget that has gone into the modernization program and even enhanced in the issue of operations. Madam Speaker, more importantly, there is a sector of government printer. That is a very crucial institution that does a lot of crucial documents to this country, to mention even the bills we use in this house, the logbooks, the title deeds, and the institution has continued to be in depleted state. My committee had also considered, and also the Committee of Budget had also considered to add and enhance the budget, which will go a long way to ensure that this important institution gets back to its feet. Madam Speaker, in the budget, again within the ministry, there is Mbagathi National Police Hospital that has been ready and equipped for the last 3 or 4 years, but has never been able to be used by our security and police officers. And in the budget, there is a substantial amount allocated to it. And it is going to help a big deal to let our police officers get the much needed health services. Madam Speaker, on the issue of electricity, it is very encouraging to note the much consideration that the budget has been given, and I'm sure Kenyans are going to go back to enjoy the connectivity which was halted for some time now. Lastly, Madam Speaker, I want also personally to really appreciate that the budget really mirrors the promise made by the leadership of Kenya Kwanza, especially when we are talking about the tight state we are as a country, the austerity measures, especially in reducing the bare minimums, reducing the issue of foreign trips, so that the money gets to where it's so important to the Kenyan people. So I want to really join the rest of us to really appreciate and commend a well-done job. And I'm sure Kenyans are going to enjoy the fruit. I submit, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for House, the Honorable Johanna Ngeno, Chairperson for Housing and Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for also allowing me this opportunity to also make my contribution towards this motion. Madam Speaker, I wish to state clearly that I support the motion. And I know very well, Madam Speaker, that these are annual estimates for the financial year 24-25, which is geared towards stimulating the economy of this country and also implementing the projects which the Kenya Kwanza government had proposed to the people of this nation. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Chair for this great presentation and, of course, for the great balance and the serious balance he made in the distribution of funds towards several ministries, or the various ministries concerned, and the various departments which of course, are going to make use of these funds. Madam Speaker, I must also congratulate him for looking at the serious areas where many issues have been arising, especially on the areas concerning roads. Madam Speaker, I wish to congratulate the Chair and the committee for putting much considerations on the issues to do with the roads. Madam Speaker, remember, this year, rains have ravaged the country, Madam Speaker, so that even the roads which had been done properly, Madam Speaker, currently most of the roads in the country are impassable. So that we literally have to redo the roads like they have never existed before. But Madam Speaker, I would have wished our chairman, given the limited resources, I would have wished if the resources were enough. Madam Speaker, I would have wished to see the extension of what we used to call low-volume roads which were initiated in the previous regime being continued at this current situation, so that those low-volume roads, Madam Speaker, made very serious impact on the societies that we come from. And most of them have also been almost destroyed by the water, by the rains, and would have been prudent, Madam Speaker, if those roads were repaired, and of course, extension of those, it was around 10 kilometers per constituency, would have been also prudent if they were extended to 20 kilometers so that we could, but of course, we understand the constraints of the budget. Madam Speaker, there is also the question of electricity, which I want to thank the committee for putting much considerations. I would have also wished they also allocated more funds, and this is also a request that we are asking them, that in future, let us also ensure that the last mile connectivity, which had been initiated in the previous regime, is also continued so that people can access electricity, because electricity has also become one of the basic needs of our people, because most of the things we do nowadays, Madam Speaker, you cannot do them without electricity. So if we were to have electricity connections in every village, every household, then of course we will be able to access many developmental activities that we have. Madam Speaker, on the sector of education, Madam Speaker, and this was another area where we also had a discussion, I want to thank the committee and the chairman for their consideration of that sector. In this situation, Madam Speaker, and I think we will also be requesting or asking the committee and the chairman to please consider in the future, that as much as we have allocated money for capitation in both primary and secondary education, we must also consider one day, we allocate money to cater for the school feeding programs, not only on primary, but on day secondary education. Madam Speaker, remember, the introduction of free day secondary education was a great relief to most of the parents. And it had gone a long way in ensuring that many students who would have missed education because of the cost of education on secondary boarding schools, etc. Madam Speaker, when free day secondary education was introduced in this country, most of the children from the poor backgrounds have accessed education as we speak today, Madam Speaker. We have sent so many students to universities, we have sent so many students to colleges, and we have even sent so many students abroad who are the products of these day secondary schools. Would have wished as an extension, Madam Speaker, on the issue of day, because currently most of the students are sent home from day schools, and yet those day schools are free, you don't pay fees, but the major problem affecting those particular students is feeding programs. They are being sent home to bring fees to pay for food. Madam Speaker, it would have been prudent also if the committee and the chair was to consider adding 3,000 or even 5,000 on top of capitation so that we can take that one towards feeding the day secondary school students. In that connection, Madam Speaker, we will not be having these day students coming home, but I will be taking lunch in the school because we would have allocated some money to these particular programs. Madam Speaker, on the issue of security, I've seen a very good allocation towards security, and we are hoping that the concerned departments and the concerned ministry will ensure that we have proper security in this country. On my area, Madam Speaker, which is the housing, and you will protect me from some serious consultation, loud consultation, Madam Speaker, around me, I would wish to thank the committee because they considered the proposals which were made towards this process, and especially from my committee. And the allocation which was put here is the allocation which we actually requested. And Madam Speaker, I want to thank the committee, and especially the money allocated to the housing, which is around 87 billion. Madam Speaker, remember the projects which the President, His Excellency the President, initiated in this country, especially the affordable housing, which is catering for Article 43 of the Constitution, where the government is obliged to ensure that Kenyan citizens access affordable housing that has all the facilities that are concerned, from electricity, water, and lighting. I mean, electricity, water, and also proper sanitation. Madam Speaker, the programs which were initiated by the President are very good, and we have, as a committee, also have gone around the country and ensured that the programs which have been started are ongoing, and some of them had stopped, Madam Speaker, because the law was not in place. And the committee, I want to thank my committee, which is the the Housing Committee, which did proper public participation. And in that public participation, Madam Speaker, we brought the law here, and this House passed the law, and the President assented to it, and which unlocked the access to these particular funds, which was the housing levy, Madam Speaker. In the current allocation, Madam Speaker, I want to tell this House and the nation that the levy which was collected can now be accessed by the State Department to build houses. And, Madam Speaker, the 87 billion which has been allocated in this budget proposal, Madam Speaker, budget estimates, will mostly, around 90%, will go towards building affordable housing. And, Madam Speaker, I want to say that among us the affordable housing projects the State Department are undertaking in this country, we as a committee also, we allowed them to access the billions of money which has been collected as a levy towards, apart from building affordable housing in towns, especially in major towns. They also do affordable housing in cities and in small towns in the constituencies. But the most important part of these projects, Madam Speaker, is the hostels. Because when we went around also the country, Madam Speaker, we realized that most of the parents who are sending students either to universities in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in Nairobi, the hostels in those universities, Madam Speaker, are few as compared to the number of students which are accommodated in those schools. And most of those students have to go and get houses outside the universities. And there are two factors in getting houses out or accommodation out of the university, Madam Speaker. One, insecurity. Two, the cost of those houses. So the building of hostels in our universities and colleges, Madam Speaker, will bring down the prices of accommodation to our students, so that parents, when they are sending their students either to the far areas, they will not be paying a lot of money towards accommodation. Madam Speaker, I want to say these budget estimates will help in helping, in making a reality the proposals or the promises which were made to the people of this country. And we are hoping that it is going to be implemented properly. And of course, Madam Speaker, the last part, which I think is towards also water. And water is one of the most fundamental factor in our lives, Madam Speaker. And most of us, the rain which actually ravaged the country, Madam Speaker, if you were to ask anybody in this house, Madam Speaker, no water was saved. The rainwater that happened in this country, Madam Speaker, because there were no dams, there were no proper storages. So even the rain which ravaged this country went to waste. Madam Speaker, I hope this budget and the implementers of the budget will ensure that in future we create situations where if there was going to be high rains like we experienced in the last months, Madam Speaker, that water will not go to waste, but it will also be stored for future uses. Madam Speaker, I wish to end there by saying I support this particular proposal for estimates. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Malava, Honourable Moses Ijendi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to thank the Chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, together with the members of the committee, for a job well done. Madam Speaker, I really appreciate this committee because as Vice Chair to Education Committee, I take note that all the proposals we were having as a committee to the Budget Committee, all of them were incorporated to the advantage of the education sector. Madam Speaker, I also want to appreciate the fact that the government is taking seriously the education sector for what it is to this country. Because when you look at the budget, the education sector has taken the most huge part of it, which is accounting for 24% of the total budget. Madam Speaker, we have, as Education Committee, we have key areas which we have prioritized in terms of budgeting, and these are the following, which have been taken care of properly by the Budget Committee. This is provision of resources to support the free primary and secondary education, as well as junior secondary school education, schools infrastructure improvement to support CBC, funding to various universities, resources to help to support students in both universities and TVET institutions, and expansion of the basic TVET and universities infrastructure, and recruitment of teachers and TVET instructors. Madam Speaker, when we look at the education sector budget, it is also well aligned to the bottom-up economic transformation agenda of the government, and this actually accounts for 35.5 billion. And the priorities in this particular area, Madam Speaker, are the following: construction of 52 TTIs, construction of integrated resource centers, and construction of junior second school classrooms, and junior second school learners capitation, Madam Speaker, which was an issue in the previous financial year. So, Madam Speaker, the Education Committee noted some key areas that require concrete policy direction for future funding and a proper and seamless flow of activities in the education sector. Madam Speaker, when it comes to the Teacher Service Commission, as reported, there was a hue and cry about the junior second school interns. We are reporting here that we had actually a proposal to the Budget Committee that all the interns who are numbering to 46,000, all of them must be converted into permanent and pensionable employment. Madam Speaker, this has been factored in, taken care of. We have, however, allocated another 20. We proposed also for an allocation of 4.7 billion to continue with the interns in the country, so as to bridge the gap that's there in terms of teaching of junior secondary schools. And the coming financial year will recruit about 20,000, which was our proposal. This will be in line with actually bridging the gap that's there in teaching. Madam Speaker, I would report that it was very interesting that there was demonstrations, and as even these demonstrations were going on because of incitement left and right, the Education Committee had already taken care of this fact, and maybe just to assure all those who will be taken on internship not to make any noise, not to go on streets, because this is now provided for that when you are intern, after a particular period of time, you'll be converted into permanent pensionable. The only thing that we are requesting the TSC to do is to ensure that there's a legal framework on the program of internship in our schools, whether it's to take 1 year or to take 2 years before absorption. Madam Speaker, I also thank the committee for giving into our requests for 1 billion for promotion of teachers. You recall this ending financial year, there was promotion of teachers, but majority of the teachers who were to be promoted were not promoted because of the constraint of funding. So this year there's 1 billion that will take care of those teachers who are not promoted. And Madam Speaker, what we have to note is that most of the teachers stagnate in one job group for a very long time, over 15 years. Maybe we will need a policy on this when it comes to promotion, so that this is not actually held back because of funding as it's happening currently. Madam Speaker, in the area of TVET, you are aware we are aware as members that each and every constituent must have a TVET. We have also, the budget committee, through our proposal, some good money was allocated to ensure that all constituencies now have TVETs. However, we want to note as a committee that there are some delays in implementation of these projects. For example, in this financial year, we have about 14 TTIs that have not been implemented simply because of delays in tendering processes in our government systems. So this maybe will require the attention of the government, the ministry, to fast-track this particular process. Madam Speaker, there also has been an allocation of some good money, 2.7 billion, for infrastructure in our junior secondary schools. This money, maybe members have to note, it will be coming through CDF, our constituent offices. The only thing that maybe has to be worked on is to ensure that there is proper collaboration between the Ministry of Planning, and the Department of Planning and Basic Education, and of course the CDF boards, to ensure that there is seamless implementation of this project in our schools, because as much as we began this particular process, we have not received, for example, money. For the last financial year, money has not yet hit the accounts of CDF offices to commence this particular process of construction of infrastructure in our schools. Madam Speaker, we also note here that we were also so surprised on Education Committee during the estimate that came from Treasury, which actually had struck off a feeding program in our schools. We pushed through this, and I want to thank the Budget Committee for actually taking into this and restoring this as per our proposal. So, Madam Speaker, we as an Education Committee want to assure Kenyans and the general population and these members that we are really keen on what's happening in the country in terms of, in view of our education in our country, education standards in our country, and considering that most persons now have taken their children to school, we want to assure the country that we will continue fighting and ensuring that all is well in our education sector, in spite of a few hitches here and there, as we move on with the new funding model, even at the universities. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, I support.
East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the budget estimate 2024-2025. Madam Speaker, I don't want to say a lot because many of my colleagues, including the chair of Budget and Appropriation Committee, and when he was moving, Madam Speaker, he spoke a lot cutting across the sectors and the importance of this budget, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just want to say some few things. Number one, Madam Speaker, I'm happy that there is some little increment, especially